you ever going to start this podcast you've been talking about for like forever?
Do you think that anyone will actually want to listen to something like this?
What is your plan for an introduction?
Are you sure you want to talk about these topics? People usually disagree.
3 hours? Are you crazy?
Do you think you're some kind of expert or something?
Are you planning to have an intro song?
What if a bunch of people get really mad and hate you over this?
Do you even know how to make a podcast?
Are you just doing this because you like to argue with people?
Don't let this be just one more thing that you talk about doing, but never actually do.
Wouldn't it be better to do just one episode for each topic?
Stop trying to change people's opinions. Just live your own life.
Dude, people are never going to agree. Just let it go.
Is this going to be a long intro? Because if it is, I'm bored already.
Welcome to another episode of Why Can't We Talk About That? As always, I appreciate your feedback, so please contact me at whycan'twetalkaboutThat@proton.me. Also, if you haven't yet, please leave a review. Thanks. Now on to my weekly rant, and it's an important one. Okay, here's the deal. If you don't know how to use a roundabout when driving, then please just don't go that way. Choose a different route and save the rest of us a lot of frustration. The idea of a roundabout is so that cars can flow in and out ideally without coming to a stop. Now don't get me wrong, sometimes a car needs to stop to avoid crashing into another car if the timing isn't right. But what is really annoying, and I know that you have all dealt with this before, is the person who is already in the roundabout and they see you nearing and getting ready to enter. We are timing it perfectly, the perfect amount of time that would allow us to slip seamlessly into the roundabout right behind that person, provided that they continue at the normal speed. But no, they don't do that, do they? Instead, they slam on their brakes, coming to a screeching halt. This is the equivalent of trying to merge onto the freeway and having the person in the slow lane just stopping their car right in the middle of the freeway. So after this person comes to a complete stop in the roundabout, they just stare at you. And you know what that stare is saying? It's saying, "What are you, crazy? Are you trying to crash right into my car and kill me and everyone else riding with me? Do you have some kind of suicidal death wish and you're choosing to take the rest of the world with you?" And I just sit there, staring right back at them. But what my stare means is something entirely different. It's something more along the lines of, "Dude, what's your problem? Do you not know how to use a roundabout?" Obviously not, because if you did, you would have continued on at the same speed and allowed me to slip right in behind you. But you didn't do that, did you? This proves that you should not be allowed to use the roundabouts. But does this moronic person get that meaning from my stare? Of course not. He will put his foot on the gas, continue on to his destination, and then tell the story to friends and family later that evening about how he and his family almost lost their lives due to the reckless driver, me, that tried to kill him. And then the next time he comes to a roundabout, the same exact thing will happen all over again. This just needs to stop. I'm not sure how to make it stop. If you have any suggestions, please let me know. For today's episode, I talk with Ellen Hill. Ellen has been one of the biggest supporters and promoters of this podcast, which I greatly appreciate, but our relationship goes back much farther than that. We were walking partners for high school graduation. She became friends with my mom when they worked together at the grocery store. She became friends with my wife, which led us to going to many bonfires and concerts together. But we will talk about much of that during the episode. Topics included in this episode are Connie Francis, the Judgment Night soundtrack, Spotify, Paula Abdul, Alanis Morrisette, country music, Sublime, Matisyahu, Durry, Joshua Aaron, Switchfoot, Needtobreathe, Teachers Should Teach Facts, Not Opinions, Border Security, The Wall, Diversity, the Military, Germ Warfare, the Freemasons, Conspiracy Theories, AI, the Value of the Dollar, Taxes, Once Saved, Always Saved, Smoking, Hebrew Roots, and Following the Law. Enjoy the conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I'm out of the house without the baby.
There you go. That works out. So
it's kind of a rare occasion for me, so I'll take it. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love being around her, but
right.
You know,
but it's nice to be away from it.
I don't get many breaks, so this is kind of exciting for me.
Yeah, that's cool. So your cousin was able to watch?
My niece, yeah.
Oh, your niece, okay.
Yeah. Oh gosh, she's a lifesaver.
Yeah. Yeah, she's an adult now, right? Aren't they all adults?
Oh, yeah.
These are your sister's daughters, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
They're all in their 20s now.
Wow.
They grew up so fast.
It's nuts.
So, yeah, we met at the park yesterday, and her boyfriend does, like, the Pokemon Go.
Oh, right.
So funny. We go to the park, and then you see all these people. They do these events there, and their faces are on their phones, kind of walking around.
Yeah,
and
yeah. Well, I remember when that first came out, there was all those stories about, not all those stories, but a few stories like, oh, and so walked off a cliff. Some 19-year-old died playing Pokemon Go because he had his face in his phone trying to catch a Pikachu or something. He fell off. I was like, did that really happen?
I don't know if that happened.
And second one, like, how often is that happening? Like,
that's funny to me. It's just like the amount of adults that are doing this still. Like,
I know.
I didn't think it was a thing until like a few weeks ago when both of my nieces and their boyfriends were like, hey, we're going to meet at the park. Like, you want to take Gianna and we're going to take Lila.
Yeah.
And, okay.
And it's not just young adults. I know people my age that still play Pokemon Go.
I mean, I said at least they're getting exercise.
That's
they're
true.
Walking around out there.
It's better than sitting in front of the game console itself or something,
why
but
not?
Yeah, so.
A quick question aside from these.
Uh-huh.
If I go to a place and order this, is it going to taste this good?
I make it a little different. The only place in town that I know of that sells that is Coffee Time. It's the only coffee shop I know that sells it. And it's pretty good. I usually ask for an extra scoop. I'll say, can I get an extra scoop of chai? Because I make mine a little stronger than
I never
norm.
order chai anything.
Yeah, some places it's nasty.
I only ever caramel latte everywhere I go, unless I'm at home and I just have regular coffee with like milk, and not even cream, just like milk and sugar.
Yeah.
And because every time I try something new, I don't like it. My family will criticize me.
Yeah.
Why don't you try anything new? And then I do, and then I'm so disappointed.
Yeah.
Every time.
Yeah. It's that whole thing like when you go to a restaurant and you know exactly what you love, but then there's 14 other things that look good, and you're like, maybe I'll like that even better. Maybe that'll be my new favorite. I'll never know unless I try it. But you're like, but I know this is really good. I get this all the time. It's really good.
Every time.
And sometimes you get something new and it's good. And sometimes it's like, oh man, I really wish I would have got what I know I like,
Once in a while I'll do that. And in fact, it's so funny because Haley, who's watching the baby, she was with me when we were at Orchid Burger, and I don't really ever go there. And I was like, oh, this like such and such sounds good. And I tried it. It was terrible.
Oh no.
Although I don't think that's the greatest place to try something new.
Probably not. Yeah.
I mean, I don't ever really go there anyway.
Especially they have a bunch of weird stuff, right? They have a fish and chips there, and they got like
it was like a Santa Fe thing. It was super dry. And it was like no cheese. I don't know. It was,
that's the worst.
Yeah, like Red Robin. I worked there all those years in the beginning when they first opened, and I had like my set thing. And although there, because I had worked there, I pretty much had tried. Now their menus changed a ton.
It's
like,
a bunch of chip changes.
In the beginning though, when I first worked there, like years and years ago, like I tried everything, so I knew what I liked. So I pretty much still, all these years later, still stick with my favorite.
They have a new one there that I swear it's like the best burger I've ever had. It's called I always get the name wrong. It's like the name of like a higher up person. I always forget the word.
A CEO or a executive.
But it's like a. Oh, I'll remember.
Even if you remember,
good,
I'll probably never try it. Because now I have my favorite thing, and every time I try something new, I just am so like going back to the coffee thing. So I always stick to my caramel lattes, because the few times I tried something different, even switching up like an oat milk or something different, it's terrible. But that's really good.
It is good. And I got the cafe at the library back when Bobby Kim used to own it. They had those. That's what they sold there. It's called Big Train. Is the brand.
Okay.
And they sold that, and I was like, whoa. And it's actually me and Denise are both hooked on this, like big time, like we're like junkies together, junkie buddies. And so we were always getting it there. Well, then they closed, and then the only other place we knew was Coffee Time. But then I was like, it's getting expensive because I want one of these like every day. And I'm like, you're talking $6-7 a pop for a drink. I was like, crazy. I can't afford that. So then I found out you can get the powder at Smart and Final for like $13 for a canister. You can make like 12 of these. Okay. And I was like, that's like a couple bucks a drink as opposed to $6. Cheaper. So a couple years ago I started buying my own, and now I actually have Amazon sends it to me every 2 weeks. Bethany's got me on this like rotation.
There you go. It's way cheaper.
Because she knows like, if I don't have it for you in the house, you're gonna go to Coffee Time and spend $7 on it or something.
Smart lady.
But it's really good. It's like, I call it liquid crack.
Yeah.
So it's very, very, very addictive.
It's very generous of you to share with your guests.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of fun because most people haven't tried it, and they'll say, "Oh, chai. I don't like chai." I said, "Well, try this because first of all, it doesn't really taste like chai.
No, it's really good.
And I have my parameters for blended chai are like Starbucks being the worst and Big Train being the best, and then there's like other ones that fall in between. I don't know what they use at Starbucks, but it's terrible. Yeah. It's like some kind of syrup pump or something. It's like horrible." But anyway, so don't be nervous. We're good.
Back to the show.
Good to go. Back to the show.
Okay.
So music's easy. We start there.
Okay.
So you are obviously a music fan. I've yet to have anybody that says they're not.
I am a huge fan.
Huge fan. Big part of your life.
Huge part of my life.
Okay. So let's start at the very beginning then. Let's start at what's your earliest musical memory?
I know. I was giving this thought. I think my earliest musical memory, honestly, was probably my dad.
Okay.
He was really big on oldies.
Nice.
So I have memories of riding around in his old Ford pickup in the Mojave Desert. Like, I know it sounds so ghetto, but we would go can collecting.
Nice. Like for recycle?
Yeah, to recycle. Nice. And now, like, looking back, he was just, like, using me, like, to go. I'd be, like, the little kid hopping out of the back, because that's back when you were allowed to ride in the back. So I'd, like, hop out, and, like, he'd see, like, beer cans or whatever on the side of the road, and I would... like hop out and get them and throw them in the back. I mean, I'd be in the cab with him too, but
so you were the collector.
Yeah, I mean, he would hop out too, depending. Okay. But yeah, we would
Mojave Desert is probably 1,000,000 degrees out there. So
in Hesperia, gosh, I only lived there for maybe like 4 years, but I was a little kid. I was probably like 5 to 9 because we moved out to Santa Maria when I was 9. But yeah, we listened to a lot of oldies, and so I really started getting a love for music then, and. Connie Francis.
Oh yeah.
I remember having a cassette tape that my dad gave me of her, and I would hit I was just trying to get the lyrics, and I don't know, I guess they didn't have that rapper that had the lyrics on it,
right?
So I had this memory of I was probably, I don't know, maybe 8 years old doing this, where I was stopping it, writing down a couple words.
Yeah.
And years ago, because I'm a super huge pack rat, I've gotten much better. But I found that.
The actual cassette?
Not the cassette,
just the case.
But my little kid handwriting.
Oh, wow.
Of me, Stupid Cupid and Where the Boys Are, the lyrics to these Connie Francis songs.
That's awesome.
Where I had hit stop and start 1,000,000 times to try to get all the lyrics down.
Yeah.
And I think I tossed them now, but I thought, oh my gosh, how sad am I for keeping these things around for all these years.
I didn't even know who Connie Francis was until we got the first season of The Muppet Show.
Oh gosh, yeah.
On DVD when it first came out, because I grew up watching The Muppet Show. But when I was a kid, I don't remember any guest stars because they were singers I didn't know or anything. But we were watching through it, and she's on one of them in the first season, and she's like a guest, and she's got the poodle skirt, and she's like all like, and Bethany, she's like, oh yeah, that's her. She's used to be like a teeny bopper singer, kind of like. I think she compared her to Annette Funicello or something, but later, I guess, maybe a little later, but I don't know what the time frame is on that. But
yeah, I'm not 100% sure, but I mean, I just really loved oldies. I think it was because I associated them with my dad. He loved, I'm talking oldies too, like Tears on My Pillow and Put Your Head on My Shoulder,
right?
And those kind of,
like doo-wop kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think so. And but he really loved Billy Joel.
Oh yeah,
which I guess I'm not a huge fan of, but now because my dad's passed since then, and now when I hear it, it's it's
nostalgic.
Yeah, I now go, I'll think of my dad. So I do really love oldies. And then years later when I was doing caregiving for Dolores for that, I think 7 or 8 years, she would have me listening to that AM 1400. Okay. So then all those old songs would come on and I knew all of them.
Oh,
and she
nice.
loved that I knew them.
Yeah, she was probably impressed.
And so she would listen to Johnny Mathis would come on and she would say, oh, he's got a voice like a violin every time it would come on. Every time a Johnny Mathis song would come on, and it would make me smile.
That's awesome.
So yeah, that was my first real memory of music, would be the oldies.
Okay.
Love that.
And that carried on to today. You still enjoy listening to that?
I do. Maybe not a ton, but actually I do. I have a lot of oldies, I think, in my playlist, but I have such a eclectic taste in music. I heard on one of your podcasts, you guys were, I think it was the one with Aiden, when you guys were saying a lot of the guests or people in general will say, oh, I like everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
I agree with what you were saying about I don't like everything because my first instinct is to say, yeah, I like everything, but that's not true at all.
Is there a genre you don't like at all?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Like what?
Like I don't like like EDM.
Okay.
I'm not a big fan of jazz.
Yeah, I'm not either. And the people that are just so like, this is the greatest music ever.
Yeah.
All other music like builds on this somehow, and I'm like, yeah, maybe.
Which is funny because there's a lot of like horns and stuff in jazz, and I like like some ska and punk and stuff like that.
Sure.
So I mean, it doesn't really go with punk, but like more of that. So I and like. You're not going to see me rocking out to like big band and a lot of death metal. Yeah. Like I do like some heavy metal, but I'm not going to like get into the super screamy stuff.
Right.
So there's a lot of music I don't care for.
Right. Yeah, I think that whole concept, and I think that's what we were talking about, is just that when you and I were younger, I don't know, you might remember this or not, but everybody had a clique. It was like, you had the hip hop guys, you had the metal heads, and nobody really meshed over too much. It was always like, that's all they like. And then you had the country guys, that's all they liked was country, and then somewhere later on, like when I talk to people now, people from our age down younger even, they usually say that when referring to genre. It's like, I like everything. There's really no genre I don't like.
Our age group though that can say that, maybe, because even in high school, I don't really feel like I fit in with like a specific group. I don't know, like looking back, I feel like I was kind of a floater. Like I had friends in different groups.
Well, I did too, but I also had my hip hop. That was all I had. Yeah. And then I switched into grunge.
Yeah.
And then it was all about that, but then it was somewhere around there that I kind of started, because even music itself started to mesh then. You had like Limp Bizkit coming out with like this rap rock, and you had like all these mixed genres and stuff, and then you started having, I'll never forget, it was the Judgment Night. Do you remember the movie Judgment Night? The movie wasn't as popular as the soundtrack. So the soundtrack came out and it was all this mesh. It was like Slayer featuring the guy from Cypress Hill or something, and it was like this death metal band or something featuring a rapper or something. So it was like the music was real heavy guitars, but then it was rap in it, and I thought it was the coolest thing ever. I was like, this is neat.
I don't remember that specifically, but I'm glad you brought that up, because the other thing I was going to say was with our age group is we had a lot of movies during that time. Well, even I'd say not just 80s, but like specifically the 90s, where there was a ton of movies with great soundtracks and like one-hit wonders too. And I have on my, I love Spotify. Yeah. Did you get it yet?
No.
Because I actually made a mental note to talk to you about Spotify. As I was listening to your podcast the first season, I was like, oh, Ryan.
Yeah. It's still the same.
As much as you love music, you need to get it.
It's still the same. And I'm okay with not having it, though. That's the funny. The only time it bothers me is when someone tries to send me something to listen to. Like they'll text me whatever it is and it's like, oh, click on your Spotify.
Won't let you listen to it.
No, it won't let me. It won't let me do it because I don't have an account. So that's but it's not that hard, because I'll just look at the song title and I'll go to YouTube or something and find it on there.
So I do. It's I don't pay for apps typically, but that's one that's worth every $10 that I pay.
It's pretty cool in concept, right?
Well, I love it too because I have personalized playlists on there. So I have like a driving mix, and then I have one that I named like when I was pregnant with Gianna, I have like the baby mix, where it's music like that I was going to listen to in the hospital, and I have Ellen's Random, which is so random, like 1 minute it'll be playing an oldie song, and then it'll be playing Nine Inch Nails, and it'll be playing something reggae, and I mean it's super random, and then it'll have like a hopeless romantic playlist where it's like all love songs, and
when you feel like crying and just want to,
I actually could not listen to that playlist for like a year, and this is how I know I'm getting like way better, is now I could listen to it. There's probably like one or two songs I still skip over, but for the most part I could like listen to that whole playlist again and add to it. So I have different I have a driving mix that's like certain songs for driving, and
I have that too, just on my phone, just because I have it on my iTunes library, and then it just transfers over.
And I'm Android user.
I even have it by like year. I have it like, let's say I just want to listen to 1991, and I'll just pop that on and plays
so
nothing but music.
I could do that on Spotify as well.
Probably without all the work, you probably then they do it for you.
Yeah, they
which
do
is better.
So sometimes I just listen to their stuff because I might get tired of like my own. Like I haven't added something in a while, but got like kind of off track.
Yeah, that's the way this goes.
Yeah, I know.
You've listened to them. That's what I love about it.
So the movies. There's so many great like Fight Club have like I have music from was it Pixies that are on there. So many great songs. I'll be watching a movie even now and I'll be like, oh, what is that? And I'll like go. I'll like put on, is it SoundHound or one of those like
Shazam.
Apps. Yeah,
I use Shazam.
What is that song?
I do the same thing, especially if it's a song I know, but I can't remember it. It's like, what is this?
Oh, I have the worst memory with like song names and albums and even band names. So. Right. So oldies was probably my first memory, and then my brother and my sister are 6 and 8 years older than me. So I also have a lot of music memories of their stuff. Okay. When I was little and I didn't have like my own taste yet besides just listening to my dad's stuff. They were, born in 78, like you were saying.
I was too, yeah.
Yeah. So my, do you have older siblings?
I'm an only child.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's right. I knew that.
Yeah. I'm glad you didn't say that explains a lot, because that's usually what people say when I say an only child. Well, that explains a lot.
You don't have the typical only child behavior.
I don't feel like I had an only child upbringing either, because I have all my family was here. I have cousins that I'm very close to.
Yeah, you don't act like an only child. You're the typical only child.
Yeah, I had the good parts because I got to spend a lot of time with them, but they didn't have to live with me, right? So I didn't have the sharing of rooms and all that kind of stuff. Because like Bethany's one of 6, and she always talks about that kind of thing where it's just she never had her own room ever. Even now, because then she left her parents' house. She lives with me now. We share a room. It's like she's never had her own bedroom ever.
That's good and bad, I guess. Yeah. I had like my sister, I had some of her music influence, and my brother, he had like, what did he have? Like a Kiss poster up on his wall.
Oh, nice.
And he had it's escaping me right now. What was that Christian heavy metal band?
Stryper?
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Oh gosh, it was going to drive me crazy. So he had Stryper up there on his wall as a little kid.
Okay.
And so I had that early on. Okay. Like that I would hear. Okay. So that was kind of like that, and then I remember listening like as a little kid to like the hair bands were coming out, like Skid Row. Yeah. And so that was fun. I remember having a sleepover even at 6th grade, and remember when you could request songs in the radio?
Oh yeah. We
were trying so hard to get them to play Beach Boys, like Kokomo. Was it Kokomo?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the one we knew, right? Because I remember that came out. I was like, oh, this new song by the Beach Boys. My parents are like, the Beach Boys?
Yeah, they're like, what?
They've been around forever. And I thought that was their first single. I'd never heard of them, right? I was like, oh, okay.
So we were like trying to request Beach Boys, and I think I was a little bit into like New Kids on the Block, but not as much as like the other kids
everyone else your age. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I have all these friends now that are trying to do all these like reunion things for them. I'm like, like I guess I kind of was, but when my mom was a single mom from like when I was like 9 on when my parents got divorced. So when we moved to Santa Maria, we moved around a lot because we lived with different people. So there was this little bit of time where like we lived with this family for just a brief period until we got our own place, and then we were at that place in Orchid, and then we had to live with this other family. So when we lived with this other family, the girl and I, I'm still friends with her today. We shared a room, and we had like so many posters on our wall, but I think we had a like Donnie Wahlberg or something.
Oh,
but we also had like Tone Loc. Big Tone Loc poster and
Funky Cold Medina.
Yes, so we listened to like a lot of like Boyz II Men, Color Me Bad, Tone Loc, and so looking back now as an adult, I cannot believe the lyrics that we listened to as children, as like junior high children. I'm listening to like I Wanna Sex You Up. And we were dancing to these at school dances, and now working at a school. Abdul, I could not believe, like, there's no way that they would be playing these songs at the dances today.
Right.
That they would be playing.
Exactly.
For our school dances.
Right. But we'd be up in arms if they were, right?
Oh,
like, what are you, my kid's not going to that dance. What are you talking about?
Holy cow. It's crazy.
Yeah, I know. It's nuts.
Oh my gosh. And huge into Paula Abdul. Like, at that time, I loved Paula Abdul. She was probably I'd say one of my favorites, like in that junior high era.
Right.
Like, loved her.
Did you see a few years ago, there was a tour with Paula Abdul, Boys to Men, and New Kids on the Block, and it was like this
I did see it.
90s group.
I never got to.
Bethany wanted to go, but she didn't.
That would have been fun.
Yeah.
That would have been fun. I don't know. I think it's probably because she did the. I didn't have cable, so I didn't get to really watch it. But my gosh, why can't I think of the show?
The American Idol, or was it American Idol or America's Got Talent? I don't remember which one she was on either.
Idol. Was on.
Okay.
I think some of I think they almost kind of lose some of the. I don't know. It would have been better if she wasn't in the spotlight and then came back, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So that was kind of cool though. Like back then, she was great, and I had forgotten about Alanis Morrisette, but recently, so I cleaned out 24 years worth of stuff in my house.
Nice.
Got rid of a ton of stuff when I had to move. Put all my yearbooks and things into storage. Recently pulled them out, and I was going through a bunch of memories. So I had this memory thing from our senior year.
Yeah.
And it was ridiculous. Oh my gosh, the stuff I had written in there was so funny. But I was looking at gas prices and how much the questions they ask you. It's very similar, almost to a baby book, but it's for your senior year.
Right.
And the music was so funny. The stuff I had written in there. And one of the things was Alanis Morrisette. And I was like, oh yeah, I forgot all about her. Yeah. But I guess I was really into it.
Yeah, that Jagged Little Pill album was
oh man,
awesome.
I loved that album.
And then she just fell off the face of the earth after that. Everything she released after that, I was like, what did she didn't have a good single?
Dave Coulier really messed her up.
Yeah. I just learned about that recently.
Oh my God.
That he's claiming to be who she's talking about and You Ought to Know.
I think so. Yeah. I think that's the rumor on the street. But yeah.
Which sounds weird because he seems like he'd be so much older than her, but I maybe not, I guess. I don't know.
I think, because I think at the time he seemed like an old dad.
He's playing an uncle.
An old uncle on the show, but
right.
Because we were young watching that.
Right. But then when Alanis Morissette came out, I didn't view her as that much older than us.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit, but not much. She seemed more like our peer, and then... But Dave Coulier was an old guy, playing an uncle on a TV show, of young children and stuff. But it's kind of weird.
So I also really liked. I'm gonna pull up this.
Yeah, go for it.
Because I don't want to forget. So in high school, so many eclectic taste in music. Really liked. I listened to a lot of stuff like MXPX, Violent Femmes.
Nice.
Beastie Boys.
Oh yeah.
Not.
They're timeless to me.
They are.
Whenever we're watching a movie, and this one's in a lot of movies, you hear No Sleep Till Brooklyn.
Oh god.
As soon as that starts, I'm like, yeah. It doesn't matter what the movie is. It's yes.
Pumped up listening to them. I have them on a workout playlist, definitely a driving playlist.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
They're so great.
Yeah, and unique. Who's done that? Nobody else.
Don't hear their sound at all. So really love them.
Yeah.
And then it's kind of immature now. I'll be like, man, I can't believe this stuff. Some of their lyrics is just kind of funny.
Yeah.
Because I was listening to Warren G.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Of course, Nirvana.
That's a good
all of those.
Yep. Good stuff.
Offspring.
Yeah.
Some of this kind of blends together with Queen Latifah, Coolio. So I did really like rap. I heard you talk about rap.
Yeah.
Wasn't so much unpopular opinion, but not as much into Tupac. And I didn't dislike Tupac.
That'll be our first disagreement.
I didn't dislike. Let me just say that. I didn't dislike.
Yeah.
I just think I just didn't listen as much because I just would listen probably more of the more popular
the radio singles kind of stuff.
I don't even know what year it came out, but how Coolio, I think it's who's on there. I know it's a Coolio, that Fantastic
Voyage, yeah.
Songs that you like, stuff like that.
More like party songs, right? That come on at a party and you dance to it or whatever.
So I think I still have a lot of those on my playlist.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Because it's just, because that's when I think I got the most exposure to it. So I didn't do like any deep dives into any of those like albums. Yeah. But I still like can listen to it and enjoy it. I'm actually even prior to like high school, more junior high, when I hung out with my girlfriend that I was friends with earlier on, she did country. So I'm not a fan of country, but I will listen to it. Like if it's on, I won't be like, ugh, country.
Right.
It's just not a huge fan.
I'm not either. I'm real selective with my country.
And I think like back then I enjoyed it. Like we'd listen to like all the Billy Ray and Garth Brooks and all that. I could recite every word to the Thunder Rolls and Friends and Low, Friends and Low.
Well, see, it's funny you mentioned both those songs because Thunder Rolls, love it. Great, awesome.
Great song.
Friends in Low Places, can't stand it.
Yeah.
I want to shoot myself every time it comes on. I cannot stand that song, right? So it's amazing to me. And I think that maybe, was I on the same album?
Like,
I think maybe.
Like, are they the same artists?
They're both Garth Brooks, yeah.
Are they?
Oh, yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah, yep.
So funny. So, and that was, I don't know if I can say names. Can I say names?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, when I was friends with Jamie Saylor.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so we were BFFs from church. And so they were big on country, like... the church, she was cousins with I think they were cousins with the LaFews, and so we'd go out there and watch the bull riders and big into country, and so by association I would listen to country, and I think I liked it, and we'd listen to like the Chattahoochee song.
Oh yeah. The
thing is I didn't listen to it for years, and then a radio station would click through and it would come on, and guess what? Be the same song.
Yeah, right.
So then I'd be like, do they have anything new?
They haven't progressed at all.
And people that would be advocates would be like, oh, it's like more wholesome. I'm like, no, they're talking about like beer and
beer and
like,
women.
Yeah, it's like it's not really any more wholesome than, another song.
Right,
so
right.
It just, I don't, the twanginess of it. Now, if I'm going to listen to country, it'd be more of like, would Johnny Cash be country?
See, that's the kind of country I like.
That's the country I'd go
Johnny
for.
Cash, Hank Williams Sr., that kind of stuff. Yeah.
So I actually have some Johnny Cash on my playlist on my Spotify. I definitely would go more that route. Right. The older country like that. Yep.
The only newer ones I like, there's select songs I like from different people, but never enough for me to go, so I'm going to go get that album.
Now, is Chris Stapleton considered country?
I believe so, yeah.
So I do have a couple of his on there, but now people that are fans of country would argue that he's not, I think.
Oh, really?
I don't know. I see these arguments on...
That's in every genre, though, right? People, that's not really hip-hop. That's not really this or that, but... Music evolves, right? You can't compare. You take Hank Williams or Johnny Cash and be like, this is country, and anything that doesn't sound like this is not. Yeah. So then you take a Garth Brooks of the 90s, and that's not country. And then you keep going even farther into now, and it's like, that's not country. It's like, it's country. Yeah. Anything that has a slide guitar, to me, is country. I don't care what it is.
There's got to be like a checklist for okay, if it checks these, it's going to at least somewhat fall into that category.
Or a banjo or something. That's got to be country,
So I'm not, now I would say I'm not into folk music type of stuff at all, but I really loved Chris Buelan, our buddy Chris.
Yeah.
I can get into his stuff and harmony and listen to theirs.
He's supposed to be on eventually, We're trying to, we keep schedule conflicts, but hopefully.
He'd be a great guest.
Yeah, I think so.
Love to hear him.
Yeah.
So like the hair bands like the Skid Row and Bon Jovi.
Oh,
Who doesn't love, that?
Yeah.
And going back to the movies like Bryan Adams, like the Everything I Do.
The Robin Hood soundtrack, Every girl in America's favorite song for like 2 years straight.
That was I think that was mine and my boyfriend's our song in high school. Everybody's got to request that at the school dances. Pearl Jam.
Okay, yeah, now we're talking. Yeah. Well, yeah, you've heard the other episodes. You know how important that band is to me.
That's such a great band.
And I still love them. To this day, they put out a new album last year, I think. And
did they really?
Awesome, yeah. It might have been 2 years ago.
I'll have to go check that out. So I love Pearl Jam. I brought those ones up. And again, like a little bit of Jane's Addiction, Nirvana, Offspring. Yeah, all the grunge bands.
So is this all kind of like just all throughout, or is this kind of progression for you?
Well, still, I think basically like I've added to, like, so once I've started liking them, they've just stayed on my playlist.
Okay. But like, was this like in high school? Like it was in the 90s when the grunge hit that you're into Nirvana and Pearl Jam? And,
yeah, I think when they came out, for sure. Okay. And then stayed.
Okay.
Now, right after high school, not right after, like a little bit after high school, like basically when I start, this is that part I hesitate on, right? Because I'm working at a school, right. But there was like the time in my life during, like mostly during college, when I started like using, right, like smoking. Mm-hmm. That's like when my musical interest changed a little bit, and that's when I got more into reggae. Right. It's par for the course, right? Yeah. For sure. Yeah. But I think I really liked it anyway. I think I liked it anyway prior to that, but I just really got into like reggae and Janis Joplin. Okay. Love Sublime.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So I started liking Sublime before I ever like smoked weed, or I think I tried weed like once in high school, twice maybe, and didn't really. It was like, eh. Yeah. I was so into grades, and like people like loved to make my teachers happy, and like was so worried about my grades that I didn't really. Was too kind of scared. Yeah. And then, plus I was going to church, and didn't even when I. That's a whole other story. Anyway.
We'll get to that in the spiritual aspect, I'm sure. We'll get to that. You already give me some talking points for that, because I didn't even know you grew up in the church. I had no clue. Oh, yeah. You keep talking about how your brother had a Striper poster, and how I was like, really? I didn't even know. Yeah. But let's talk about Sublime for a minute. So, so was that... what's like your first introduction to that? Was it 40 ounces, or was it later? It was 40 ounces. Okay. Loved that album. Did someone like when your friends show it to you?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of when.
Because it's not like they had any songs on the radio from that album.
I'm trying to think, because you have to bear with me, because I did lose a lot of brain cells during that time. Right. I'm going to be real with you. Yep. Kids, if you're listening, don't smoke. Yep. Gonna put that out there right now. I'm being serious. It does kill brain cells. So let me be a life, what's it called? A life lesson.
Life coach?
Well, life coach, yeah. Everyone send me, everyone listening, send me $1 to my Venmo.
Yeah, there you
go. I can't think of the actual phrase. Not life lesson, but
influencer?
No, I can't think of it.
A sun
cautionary tale.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, what were those commercials that used to come on? What were they, like after school special or whatever? Those things were always like, don't do drugs,
No, and they would have to. What was that little? I just watched a video recently where it was talking about like Gen Xers. I love those videos. But it was like they literally had to remind our parents. To ask your parents, do you know where your children are? Like, they didn't even know where we were.
Right, yeah.
Okay, yeah, 40 ounces freedom. I think, I don't remember. What year did that come out?
That had to have been 93? 94, maybe?
Okay, so...
I think I was a sophomore in high school. And I'll tell you my story with Sublime. So for whatever reason, I think it was sophomore year or junior year, that I might be getting mixed up. But for whatever reason, I had no class third period. They just screwed up my schedule, and I never said anything about it, and I just had no class. Well, Rob May, you remember Rob May?
Love him.
So he also had that.
Big lawyer now.
Yeah, I saw that on Facebook. So he also had that period free. I don't remember why. So we just drive around in his car. We just drive around, right? Yeah. Yeah, so that's where I first got turned on to, he always had Weezer's first album playing in the car. And then Weezer. He one day said, check these guys out. And he pops on 40 Ounces to Freedom, and Waiting for My Ruka was the first song on there. And I was like, what in the world is this? Like, I've never heard anything like this. Then it goes to the next song, and you got the scratching, and like every song to me sounded so different. And I was like, I have never heard anything like this in my life. And I just fell in love with it. And then it was funny, they had songs like Date Rape and, some of these just hilarious songs.
Yes, or lyrics.
So that was when I came into it. And then, And then the next album I thought kind of sucked. It had a couple good songs, but then that self-title is when that's when everybody knew who they were with What I Got and, all those ones. So
I want to say, and I'm still friends with him, so he could probably.
Oh, really? I haven't talked to him since high school.
Well, no, not Rob, but what I was about to say is it could be Brandon. Because the guy I dated in high school.
Oh, yeah. Santa Maria High School guy.
Yeah. So we're still friends on Facebook.
Okay.
So it could have been him that introduced me to it initially. I can't remember. Cause we're old now.
But did it just blow your mind when you first heard it? Were you just like, what is this? Like,
yeah, incredible. Such good music.
Oh, yeah.
And then I don't think I really appreciated it as much until I really started smoking, to be honest. Because then, like, they had 2 joints.
Then you get it. It's just like, I understand now.
Then I was in that, like, in there, like, they clearly partied and stuff.
Right.
And so then I was like, yeah, I'm part of these guys. But their sound was incredible.
Yeah.
It was so different.
Yeah.
And... oh man, Bradley's voice was so good, and it just breaks my heart.
I know.
Like if he was still
It
around, to think of where.
Well, that's what I was thinking. A selfish way, right? Like what kind of albums we would have had after that? Because I feel like they really hit their sound with that self-titled album, and then we never heard anything after that because he died shortly after that came out. So I was like,
it's crazy. Yeah. So really, really love. I still really love Sublime.
Yeah.
Still really love them. So that was just a great album.
Oh yeah. Yep. Good stuff.
So yeah, I really got into reggae after high school and love Bob Marley.
Yeah. See, that's what I was going to say. That's really the only one. Bob Marley and Ika Mouse are the only reggae artists that I can say I really got into.
Yeah, and I really didn't get into Ika Mouse too much. I love Bob Marley initially. Like that would be, and like my very first, and this is a question I think would be great for you to ask your guests. Because you were saying like, oh, if you had anything to add. So my very first concert ever was Bob Marley or Ziggy Marley in the Melody Makers at Santa Barbara Bowl.
Nice. How old were you?
I think I was 18. I wasn't with Brandon anymore. I was talking to this other guy. And so I went with Angela. Was Barkley at the time.
I never knew her, but I remember she was your friend.
Yeah. Well, she didn't go to our school. She went to, she did. She graduated there, but she went to St. Joe the first 2 years.
Was she going out with Tom McKeon?
Yes.
Okay, so that's how I remember her. Yeah.
One of my best buddies. Okay. And so, but at the time, she wasn't with him anymore. So we went with we had a double date and went with these guys, and it was so much fun. Like we had such a great time. And so that was my very first concert. So you should ask your guests, like if they've been to a concert, what their very first concert was.
Like, you're not the first person to suggest that either.
Really?
Yeah. I should put that in there because people do say that.
Yeah, that would be a fun one.
Yeah.
So my very first concert was a reggae concert. Okay. It was really cool. It was at Santa Barbara Bowl. And Ziggy Marley. And I just for the longest time listened to a lot of like Bob Marley and stuff like that. Yeah. And I like the older Bob Marley too, and liked Kaya, and but then even now I love like Revolution, Stick Figure, the guy from my brain, Eric I think is his name, got the singer from Revolution. He did the Unified Highway.
I've heard of them. That's another band.
Yeah, well he did a collab with this other guy who, it was like this band that was like Zion something. And anyways, they put their sounds together. And, put out this few songs. And now I think they're putting together something else with it. And it's really good.
Okay.
So I really like, Matisyahu.
Oh, yeah.
Love him.
And he's changed a lot, too.
He has. So initially, when I first started listening to him, I thought he was fantastic because it was a way for me to still listen to reggae but have really great lyrics.
Right. Because they were biblical.
Because it was biblical. Right. He's Jewish.
Old Testament biblical, but yeah.
Yeah, he still is Jewish. Like he's not Jewish.
He's different though, right? Like his beliefs have changed.
Yeah,
like
he's still Jewish.
Okay.
He's just
ethnically or religiously?
He's ethnically Jewish.
Right. But I feel like his religious beliefs have changed some over the years, right?
What has happened is he's just become more secular.
Okay.
So I don't think I think he probably still would consider himself a Jew, but he doesn't like run like the religious circuits.
Right.
He's more like running around with other.
And he shaved his beard off, which totally blew my mind. I was like, dude, what is this guy doing? Like, you don't look totally different.
Yeah.
It's like when the Duck Dynasty's guys shave their beards. Like, what is this?
Yeah.
But yeah, his first album, Youth, I thought was my favorite one. There's a song
so
in there.
Actually, my ringtone, which it's amazing because my phone's on silent all the time, so I actually pretty much only hear it once in a blue moon when I'm waiting for a call and I turn my ringtone on.
But it's him?
But it's,
What song?
One Day.
Okay.
And I love Sunshine. And so he's great. Love Matisyahu. I've seen him in concert.
Oh, really? 2
or 3 times now.
Oh, wow. Dang.
He was at Santa Barbara once, and then at Avila Beach with Stick Figure.
Oh, really? So
that's when I saw him, is when he was with these other guys. With, I don't know if I saw him with Revolution or Stick Figure or one of those.
So even now that you're out of the weed stage of your life, you still enjoy that kind of music?
I do. It's just that every other, like, some songs, great. Like, they don't have a lot of references. Some, that's all they're singing about.
Right.
So it's like,
does it bring you back there in a sense? Like, to where, like, because I know some people that don't like to listen to, like, pre-salvation songs because it reminds them of who they used to be before that.
Yes.
I'm not that way, but I know some people that
are. Not really. I mean, some songs kind of do, but not really.
Okay.
I don't know. I guess it has to see where I'm at in life too. Like, I kind of would determine, like, if I feel like I'm at a place where I'm like going to be tempted or something, then I wouldn't.
Right.
Like, I would kind of have to step back from that.
Right. Okay. Do you find that today as an adult, do you have like a specific genre that you would say is your all-time favorite, even though you like many different ones?
I still really enjoy my top favorite still are classic. Like, I didn't even bring it up yet, but like Pink Floyd and Led Zeppelin.
Okay.
Really enjoy them.
Oh, is that your shirt, Pink Floyd?
Yeah.
Dark Side of the Moon.
Oh yeah. But I really like my favorite song I think from Pink Floyd is "Wish You Were Here."
Okay. Yeah.
Although I do have a lot of favorites. Man, there's so many songs, so many bands I still haven't even brought up. So I could talk about music for 3 hours.
So you're into music, I guess, is what you're trying to say. So classic rock
and reggae, and still reggae.
Okay.
I love, like, didn't even talk about it yet, but going even further, like Barlow Girl.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we saw them live.
Which that's actually what got me into my top favorites, Switchfoot.
Okay.
And
are you gonna go see him at the fair?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And OC Supertones.
Yep.
So
which we were at their final show together.
Yes.
That was cool.
Yeah, and I've seen them since then.
Okay.
So
final show, they say.
MXPX, which used to be Christian punk, and they kind of got away from that.
Has said he's no longer.
Oh man, and I didn't bring up Dropkick Murphys.
Yeah.
And I really love Beatles.
Me too.
Love Beatles.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite album? That's a hard one. Do you like more like their boy band stuff of the early days, like She Loves You, Yeah Yeah, or do you like more like the psychedelic rock of like the White Album and Sgt. Pepper and stuff?
Probably the earlier stuff, but like Here Comes the Sun.
Yeah, I love that song.
It's probably one of my favorite ones.
Right.
Actually, that's Gianna's favorite.
Oh, really?
So I played a lot of Beatles and a lot of reggae when I was pregnant with her. So now when that songs come on, she stops what she's doing.
Oh,
she wants
really?
to dance.
That's cool.
She's really into music.
Right.
And I probably went to the most concerts when I was in that short amount of time when I was pregnant with Isaac. I don't know if there's been studies done about it, but he's so musically talented naturally.
Oh, really?
Like, he could pick up stuff and just learn it.
Wow.
And so he's kind of self-taught himself piano, guitar. He just naturally has this ability.
And he's how old now?
17. He'll be 18 in November.
Okay. And does he do anything musically? Does he have a band, or does he learn? Does he write music?
He just self-taught himself. He's just into a lot of different things. But he did he was playing around with stuff when he was still living here, and they did a talent show with some buddies, and he was playing stuff with them.
That's fun.
But yeah, and I'm like, I wonder if that's he was always going to all these concerts in the womb, and
right. Yeah, you never know. Who knows, right?
Yeah, I was like, I was 9 months pregnant when we went to that
Supertones. That was awesome.
Concert,
yeah.
And I was pregnant with him.
Yeah.
And actually, we saw Supertones at Spirit West Coast when I was 6 months pregnant with him.
Okay. That same year?
That same year.
Oh, obviously 6 and 8 months.
Yeah. And then a bunch of bands at that Spirit West Coast. Man, I miss those.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was actually Bethany. I could kind of attribute you guys. No. I could. How much time do we have to talk about music?
We have all day.
Let's talk about music?
Yeah, we'll just go.
Let me backtrack. Okay.
We'll get there. So we're not even at the music time up yet. We probably have 20 more minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll try to make this quick because I do want to talk about Switchfoot.
Yeah.
Since it's my favorite band.
Yeah.
But really quick. So I'm just going to mention, because you brought up 21 Pilots. I do love them. So I just wanted to say that.
So awesome.
I would love to see them in concert.
And you haven't yet?
I haven't yet.
They're so good.
So I do love 21
so
Pilots.
Good. It's worth it.
I love their sound. I love how they're different.
Right.
The thing I loved about Supertones is that when I came back to like going to church and stuff regularly, they kind of sort of reminded me of Sublime a little bit.
Oh yeah. There's a song on their fourth album, Loud and Clear.
Yes.
That sounds just like Sublime.
So that's what really turned me on to them, because I was like, well, they kind of sound like Sublime, even though they're not like to where I could have that kind of vibe and that sound without all the bad lyrics.
Right.
And Matisyahu at the time kind of sounded like they had that good reggae lyrics without all the bad, you know.
Right.
So like I was kind of able to transition more into like good lyrics, like without sacrificing the type of music that I like.
Right. Exactly.
So there was a lot of the music that I like was. It was good.
And that was a good time because that's when Christian music started to get to where it sounded just as good as secular music. Because there was a time where Christian music just sucked,
boring.
you know? Yeah, but there were bands that were coming out and are still coming out today that are
no offense, but
really
like,
good.
People like we'll talk about like Natalie Grant and like
Amy Grant.
Amy Grant. Yeah. See, I don't even know the names.
Yeah. Well, Natalie Grant is a more recent contemporary singer.
Yes. But like,
I don't think there's a relation.
Like the Michael W. Smith.
Yeah,
nothing against them, but
it's okay.
But that was more of like maybe our parents.
It's kind of cheesy and corny sounding, you know. But then you have some of these like hard bands coming out, like, oh, this sounds good, you know. It's like, wow.
And then there's this new. I don't know how new it is. I tried to listen to the other music by this band, and it wasn't really for me. But this girl, actually, it's Sabin. You know her. Do you remember Trish from high school?
Trish. What's the last name? I know a few.
Was it Eisen?
Oh, yeah. She's.
I'm sorry, Trish.
Her last name's like Poffer something now.
I'm butchering your last name too. It's just because my memory's so
Eisner.
bad. Eisner.
There it is. Yeah.
I'm so sorry, Trish.
Because I'm sure she'll be listening to this.
Please forgive me.
I always say that. It's like
she might. I'm going to post it.
Yeah, are you? All right.
So she actually shared the song on Instagram, and it made me listen to the song. That's where I got a lot of my music too. Is that I'll hear somebody put up something on a story,
right? And
then I'll hear it and be like, oh, what's that song?
I've got a bunch of bands that are becoming my favorite bands that I didn't know about until I did this podcast.
Oh.
People will tell me about a band I never heard of, and I'll write it down, and I'll go check it out, and it's like, wow. Sometimes it's like, nah, I'm not into it, but other times like, dude.
So she shared the song by Durry. Have you heard of Durry?
Durry? How do you spell that?
Durry.
Is that like a person's name, or is that the name of a band?
Like a guy. It's like a guy, maybe a girl. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
Who knows these days?
I wrote down Bubblegum Song. I don't even know if it's called Bubblegum Song, but
Bubblegum.
It is so cute. So it's like a little love song. And I listened to it, and the lyrics are adorable. And it's supposed to be a love song, but I put it on for Gianna.
Okay.
And so now it's like our song.
Oh, cute.
And we dance in the living room to it.
Nice.
And so every time she'll hear like the first two notes, and it doesn't matter what we're doing, she wants to immediately stop what she's doing and dance to it.
Oh, nice.
And she puts her arms up, and she's expecting me to
cute.
dance. The downside to this is I put on music while she's in bath time. So if that song happens to come up while she's in the bath, she's expecting to like get up and dance in the bath. So I have to be really careful about the playlist I choose during bath time. But
is it like a dancey song?
It's not. It's like, oh, you'll have to listen to it. Okay. It's so adorable.
I'll check it out for sure.
It's just a cute little, it's supposed to be a love song, but it's,
right.
I don't even know how to describe it. It's different.
Yeah.
So that's why I thought, oh, this is kind of a different sound.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's why I thought it'd be a cool.
Have you listened to other ones?
Yeah, I try to listen to it.
Couldn't get into it?
It's okay.
Kind of a one-hit wonder for you?
It's okay. There are so many one-hit wonders on like Spotify and stuff where I'll hear one song and I'm like, oh, that's great. And I'll go to listen to other bands. I'm like, no, not really for me.
I think that's almost like par for the course now because of the Spotify generation, though. Because, and I was just talking about this in the last podcast I just did. But very rarely do people sit down and say, okay, I'm going to listen to an album. Like, as this full album is a piece of art, right? Like, this band or this artist has put this together. They put the track list in order on purpose, and it's going to tell a story. I mean, I'm not even talking like a concept album. I'm just saying they did it on purpose. The artwork lends to it. You know, like in the old days, that's what it was. We'd buy a CD or a tape, and we look at the cover, we read the lyrics, we listen from beginning to end, especially in the cassette tape days because there was no skip track.
Oh, yeah.
Right? You'd have to rewind.
Whether you like it or not.
Exactly, right? So, but that's kind of lost these days now because it's like these kids are like, oh, I just listen to Spotify and I just put it on, or Pandora, and it'll just play a different song and I'll hear it. But how often do they hear a song and go, oh, I'm going to go into that whole band's catalog or something?
Right.
Not very often, you know?
I did do that, not really just because I listened to it on YouTube, but there's this other artist, Joshua Aaron. Have you heard of him?
No.
He's a Christian. He sings a lot of, I don't know if they're hymns or just a lot of Christian songs. He's Jewish Christian.
Okay.
Like Messianic.
Yeah.
He's just good. It's good worship music.
Okay.
That's
is that what it sounds like? Kind of church style kind of music?
Sure, but it's more like he'll sing in like Hebrew and English.
Ooh, really?
And like he has like How Great Thou Art and things like that. But it's
traditional stuff.
Some of it's traditional, some of it's his stuff. And it's good though. And it's more of like Christ and God centered, and not all like the some of the newer stuff that comes out. You're like, is that even a Christian song? Like you're not sure. So a lot of times Saturdays I'll put that on YouTube, and that's another artist that Gianna will just kind of be like, what? Like she'll stop what she's doing, kind of pay attention. Right. Okay, so back to.
So let's talk Switchfoot then. Yeah, so what's your first introduction into them? Or have you been around since day one, or did you come in the middle?
No, like not day one, but really early on, because do you remember Paula and Curtis from Calvary?
Curtis.
Okay, so your mom and I worked when we were at Lucky. Your mom and I worked with Paula Foreman at Lucky.
Name sounds familiar.
She worked in the pharmacy.
Okay.
And she and her husband Kurt went to Calvary. Okay. And I was teenager. Like I started working there at 16. So I don't know exactly how old I was when she told me this, but she was telling me, hey, my nephews are in this band. They're in this band. You should check it out. They're called Switchfoot. I was like, oh yeah? They're like, yeah, they're in this band. And so like that was my first memory.
So this is like 90s.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I started working there at 16.
Okay.
So I don't know what year that was, 95 or so.
Yeah.
I started school young, so my senior year I started 16 and I turned 17 in November. Oh
wow, okay.
Yeah, because I was 4 when I started school.
Because you're a smarty.
So I have a late birthday. I got a November 11th Veterans Day birthday.
Oh, just like Alora.
Yeah,
the same. You guys have the same birthday.
Yeah,
that's right.
We share a birthday.
Yeah, and she was the same. She started kindergarten when she was 4.
Yeah. So she was 16 then, her senior year.
Yep.
Okay, so I mean, I was young, so early, and she was like, yeah. And then I think I might have checked them out, but back then it was hard to check out a band. Right. Like you couldn't just go. There was no internet. Like not like that. Yeah. I mean, not where you could
especially like a small band at the time, right? How do you can't go to a warehouse and buy a CD.
But then I remember her telling me, "Oh, hey, that my nephew's band, they're going to be on the Tonight Show."
Oh, they were that big.
The Late Show.
Okay.
Or I don't. It was either like Leno or Letterman, maybe. I was like, wow, like So that's when I like first was like hearing about them and listening.
Okay.
And I wasn't like super into them yet, but I'd started to like, I think I got like their tape or something.
Which one was it? Do you remember? Was it like Learning to Breathe or was it?
It wasn't Legend of Chin.
Legend of Chin.
That was their first.
That's the original, right?
That was the original. I'm trying to think of it might have been Learning to Breathe. It was like their
I think that's the second one.
Yeah, it was their next.
With
it must have been,
New Way to Be Human and.
Yeah.
Okay.
It must have been. And then, years had gone, and then but you guys couldn't go to Great America. You had tickets to a concert, and Barlow Girl was playing. And man, Bethany and I love Barlow Girl.
Yeah.
I can't, looking back, even thinking about music, I can't even believe how many concerts we've been to with you guys.
I can't even
do you know that?
No.
Do you remember that? Or
I remember Supertones, and I remember...
We've been to a lot of concerts together.
Okay.
Maybe not necessarily.
Did we see Cutlass together?
We might have, but we saw. Were you guys at the Jeremy Camp concert at a like New Life or one of those?
Yes.
So we saw Jeremy Camp.
That was the acoustic show.
Yes.
Yes.
So we saw Jeremy Camp there.
Okay.
We saw, I think, Super Chick. Were you guys at that one?
Yes, I remember now because me and John helped Super Chick load their van after the show was over. That's right. I thought it was the coolest thing ever.
Yeah. So we
told Beth and I said, "Oh, the girl from Super Chick just thanked me for loading her."
You know, it's so
like, this
funny.
is so cool.
Oh my gosh, I remember that concert because I had been nursing. Do you remember what year that was?
Oh shoot, no idea.
I think I was after I had Isaac.
Yeah.
Because
had to be like mid 2000s.
Okay.
Maybe late 2000s.
Okay, if it was right after, then I was after Brianna. I'm trying to think if it was after Brianna or after Isaac. It was either right after Brianna or right after Isaac, but I had just had a baby. So if it was mid 2000s, if it was after Isaac, he was born in 2005. I remember at that one I was nursing the baby, and I had my little nursing pads flying.
Oh no!
It was so embarrassing because I was like, I hadn't been out.
Right.
I had I had the baby, but I had a babysitter that night, and I remember looking at the ground and seeing these little circles on the ground.
That's awesome.
And that's because I was dancing.
Because you were rocking so hard,
so hard that I bounced these things right out of my shirt.
Oh man,
oh my gosh,
that's awesome.
Oh, we also saw Paul Wright.
Yes. We saw him a few times.
I think KJ5 too.
I've never seen KJ.
Okay, then maybe not.
I think when we saw Paul Wright, the time you're thinking of maybe was that here in town? Wasn't it First Christian?
I think it was maybe Pismo.
Maybe it was a Pismo, but it was Paul Wright, Sean McDonald, and Matthew West.
Yeah.
That's who played that show.
Such a good show.
But that was like, we've seen Paul Wright 3 different times. One time we saw him also in Pismo, I think it was, and it was just him. He was the headliner, but he had his whole band with him. And it was awesome. It was the best we've ever seen him. He was getting the crowd all into it, and everybody was involved. He had all these dancers that were doing all this choreographed stuff. It was really cool.
He was great.
Yeah.
I still have a CD floating around, which now I have no way to play it because I don't have a CD player
anymore. Who does, right? Yeah.
But exactly. Well, I did up until my car broke down. I got my new whip out front.
Yeah. Nice.
But yeah, so off topic.
Go ahead.
I'll go back to Switchfoot, but also when we were talking about transitioning to music, KJ52 replaced Eminem for me.
Yeah.
So that's a side note.
Do you ever listen to NF?
Not really.
Like now? So he's more Eminem-like to me than KJ was, but...
Yeah. I knew I don't really listen to it too much, but yeah. Okay, so that concert. So Bethany gave us tickets to that concert.
To see Barlow Girl.
At Great America. And it was great. I love Barlow Girl. Mm-hmm. And then we were kind of at the back, and then... We were there for like an anniversary or something too. Like it was a big deal. Okay. And then these people were like, "Oh, you can have our tickets. Like we have very front row seats. We don't, we get switched." And Switchfoot was the big show. Like Barlow Girl was opening for Switchfoot.
It was the same show.
It was the same show.
Switchfoot was the headliner.
But we went with the intention. Like our big thing was we wanted to see Barlow Girl.
Right.
John didn't. He was just there for the ride.
Yeah.
He didn't care. Like he was just like, whatever you're doing, he'll just go with you. But so these people swapped us seats. Like they were an older couple. They didn't want to be in the front row. It was like the first or second row.
Right.
And oh my gosh, I was hooked. Like, and then now I know John Foreman's big thing is to come out in the crowd and crowd surf.
Okay.
So, and like, you know, get out and interact with the people.
Yeah, see, I didn't know that. I've never seen them live.
Oh my gosh.
They've even played here in town and I missed it.
They put on such a great show. I've seen them more times than any other band. I think I've like 7 or 8 times now. Maybe not that many, but a lot.
Right.
So that show though, he came out and he was right in front of us, like, and at one point people were kind of pushing into him and he had to like use me to like hold on to me to not fall over.
And you're like, I'm never washing this shirt again.
And I was like, oh my gosh. Like, I was so excited. Like, John Foreman touched me.
That's
like,
so cool.
It was really cool. Like, John like had to help him, like my, like, quote unquote, my ex John had to like help him up, and it was such a cool experience. The show was great. They sound like they sound. Right. You know, that's a big thing. You know, some of these bands, they don't sound anything. You
hear them live and you're like, wow, this is nothing like
garbage. You know, that's what I loved about Supertones. They were so good live.
Yes.
Same thing like Third Day. They put on such a great show.
I've never seen that.
Spirit West Coast is when I saw them.
Oh, okay.
You guys, I thought, were at that one. Maybe not.
We've never been. We went to something that was being called that, but this was years later. It wasn't the 3-day festival, and this was just down in LA.
We just went to one day when we went to the 3-day festival. It wasn't 3 days. We just went one day.
But this one we went to in LA was literally only one day. It wasn't that we just went for one day. It was, that's all it was.
Okay.
But they were calling it Spirit West Coast. But it was like, I forgot who was there. I think it was King for King and Country was part of it.
They'd be great to see.
I ended up I've seen them twice. They're awesome. That's probably the second best show I've ever seen.
I would love to see
right below
them.
21 Pilots. They put on an awesome show. But there was a couple other people who played that. We got those tickets out of nowhere because a friend of mine called me. He's like, hey, I'm taking my daughter to see For King and Country tomorrow, and the people we were going with just canceled on us. Do you and Addie want to go?
That's awesome.
So I ended up taking Addie. So she's got pictures with Joel and Luke from
great.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah,
and we saw a bunch of other people there too. But back to Switchfoot, I assume you've listened to John Foreman's solo?
Yeah.
I love that.
It's so good.
I like that better than Switchfoot, to be honest with you. I know that's not a popular opinion, but
it's good.
I love it.
It's really good. And
it's just mellow, and his lyrics are so poetic, and it just so good.
And his brother Tim actually is a really good singer as well.
Oh, really?
I don't know if you've ever heard
He's the drummer, right?
He plays guitar. So during COVID, they did a lot of stuff online, like on Instagram, and they actually did some covers.
Okay.
There's some cover music too that were really good, and I can't think of the name of the band. I should, but they covered this one song that was really great. I'd have to go back and look. Oh, and they did, like, you know that song In Your Eyes from Say Anything?
From the movie?
The movie Say Anything.
In Your Eyes.
It's like
Is that Peter Gabriel?
Yeah.
Okay.
They covered that song.
Okay.
Yeah, John covered it. John Foreman covered it.
Nice.
With this other guy from a different band or something. And man, it was so good. His voice with it was so good.
Yeah.
And so Bethany really kind of was instrumental in helping me to become an even bigger Switchfoot fan because of giving me those guys giving me those tickets.
So they should be paying her royalties, is what you're saying.
Well,
so if they ever hear this, I have a funny Switchfoot story. Is and you may have seen this documentary or not, but are you familiar with Five Iron Frenzy?
I am.
Christian ska band. Did you ever watch their movie? Was The Rise and Fall of Five Iron Frenzy? It's after they broke up, and now they're back together again too, just like Supertones. But they broke up and they released this DVD. Well, the first disc was the entire final show, the live show of the last show. And then the second one was all these like extras and stuff. Well, on there, they're kind of joking around because in some of the live footage, their Switchfoot is opening for them and stuff. And I think it was either Reese the singer or somebody else in the Five Iron Friends band. They were joking and saying, yeah, there's this band Switchfoot, like, that always opens up for us. We think they're great, and like nobody really gets into them. Like nobody seems to really care about them when they're on stage. We're like, we think they're great. And it was at the time that the DVD had come out. Obviously, Switchfoot is way bigger than Five Iron, so it was kind of a joke. It's like, yeah, I don't know about these Switchfoot guys. We always thought they were great, but they didn't get a good response. But it's just
That's so funny.
It's just awesome,
What's funny is like they when I don't know what. If those Vice Versas came out, I think, then all of a sudden, like, they got more radio play, and people are like, oh, yeah, these guys used to be kind of sucky, and they're great now. It's because they sounded more secular. And
well, what was the first time I remember them having a huge... It was off the Beautiful Letdown album. but I don't remember the name of the song.
Dare You to Move is like...
Dare You to Move was the big one, but that was on Learning to Breathe.
Yeah.
But then they re-released it on Beautiful Letdown.
Yeah, they re-released it.
But there was another one. I know there's More Than Fine was one of them, but that was more of a Christian radio single. Dang it, there was one on there. It wasn't Dare You to Move. Oh, it's going to bug me now. I'll remember. We
can look it up.
Yeah, we'll look it up. But it's... But anyway, yeah. So for me, I actually preferred his solo stuff over the Switchfoot stuff. I don't know why that is.
Something about Switchfoot is I don't know, like Hello Hurricane's probably one of my favorite albums from them. Well, and Vice Versa I love. It's probably, I don't know, it's hard to say. I really like both of those. Mm-hmm. I don't know that there's an album that I sit down and love every song on the album, but there's definitely like every album there's a couple that I'm like absolutely love this song
right,
and so I can make my own.
I was gonna say stuff. That's another reason I love Spotify. Like I can take like and say like Ellen's best of Switchfoot, make my own and take a couple from every one of their albums and make my own personalized favorite. There you Switchfoot. Go. Then you don't have to skip any tracks.
But something about their I think one of the reasons I could say they're one of my favorites is because for some reason they seem to kind of go with where I'm at in life, like their albums, and I can't explain it. It's just coincidence, but I'll be in like this worst time in my life or best time in my life, and then this song will be released or this album will be released, and it's going right along with where I'm at in my life. And so there is one song off of one of their albums that's really hard now for me to still listen to, because back when I was going through some stuff with my marriage, like 10, now it's longer than 10 years ago. But there was this song that I really had held on to back then. And so then there was a time where we had like this reconciliation, and so this song is really special to me.
Right.
Well, now when I hear it, I'm like, don't want to hear that song at all,
Yeah, isn't that funny?
And it's probably had nothing to do with relationship, really, in that sense.
Right.
But now to hear it, I'm like, there's very few songs that I really have to skip over anymore, but that is one of them. And I'm like, oh man, kind of ruined that switch.
Yeah, it's more like life experience ruins the song for you kind of thing.
Yeah, but there's so many. It's really powerful, a lot of the music to me. I love the lyrics on... I love when a song can do that, when lyrics to a song can really just touch me in that way, and it's not just fluffy, whatever, like tune out type of music. Yeah. There's, sometimes music's good for that too, to where you can not think
white noise and
white noise music. It serves its purpose too.
Yeah.
But
I usually ask what's a group or band that's most influential in your life, but it sounds like that was Switchfoot for you.
I think so. I think so, just because it's really been there. Switchfoot's been there for me through a lot of those times. Right. Yeah, I think I can settle on Switchfoot on that one.
But you couldn't pick a favorite album by then?
I don't think I could pick a favorite. There are definitely certain songs, but I mean it's hard because again it depends on where I'm at in life. I also I didn't bring them up. I really love Needtobreathe.
Oh yeah, I just saw them live at Vina Robles last year.
I've seen them live once a long time ago. I want to say it was like 2008 or 9.
Oh wow!
A long time ago.
It's like when they first came out.
Back at a little bar in Slow.
Nice.
It was long time. Yeah, I think I want to say 2008. I could probably go. I think I took one picture that night, and it wasn't even of the band. It was like we're all standing out front waiting to get in. So I really love Needtobreathe. If I don't want to say like they were in my top 5, but they're way up there. Yeah. And I think that they've gotten better and better as the years have gone on. Their sound.
They've added more instruments.
Oh, their lyrics.
Yeah.
In fact, like I have more added on my playlist. Like their song Cages. Such a good song. Yeah. And I'm like, man, it's like really gets you thinking. Right. That's another one of those bands where a lot of the lyrics are just like good. Yeah. Good lyrics and thinking. And something else I want to say about music being so powerful is working with Dolores all the years that I did. So when I started with her, my little elderly lady,
right,
she was very all together, put together when I first started working with her. She just had a knee replacement. That's initially what started me working with her.
Right.
And then she liked me and I stayed. She needed me to stay, and she had a bunch of us girls working for her. But towards the end, she got dementia, and it's got worse and worse and worse, and to where she didn't really remember a ton. But music she always loved. She played piano. It was so funny. For years, she volunteered at a care center, and she played piano. She was older than a lot of the residents there.
Right.
But she would go and volunteer. This is before I knew her. But then, I played music for her. So even when she couldn't remember a ton, she would hear a song, and immediately memory of something would come flooding back for her.
Oh, wow.
And she would share a story. So I just love that about music, that can do that.
Right.
And it's so important, I think. Music plays that role. And I think we can probably talk more about that in the spiritual part, part of it, too. Yeah. There's some spiritual aspects there.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's one thing I love about music, too, like you said, is it just... I've mentioned before on this podcast, but it's like when I hear a certain song, I will literally feel like I'm back in my mom's car and I'm 8 years old, like instantly, as soon as it comes on. It's such a nostalgic thing that it can just bring up all that memories. The only other thing like that is like smells.
Yes.
There's certain smells that all of a sudden, oh my gosh, I haven't smelled this in like 20 years,
Absolutely.
But I feel like I'm right back where I was. Yeah. It's the strangest thing. It's almost more than visual. I can be flipping through a photo album, won't have the same effect as hearing that song or smelling that smell.
Absolutely.
It's amazing.
It's crazy because it's not just the sound, it's like this whole feeling that is behind it, and it brings you back, and it gives you these memories will come flooding back. And I got to see that firsthand, and I had that pleasure. It's really an honor to work with elderly in that sense, where that the music, and I've seen videos too where you see these little guys and gals where it's something. Yeah. But to hear, all of a sudden she'll tell me this whole story about something that had happened from one song that'll come on, and it's just incredible. And I'm experiencing that even now.
Right.
And I have one playlist that's all praise and worship music. And it's great, I'll pop that on. But there's a song I actually had to take off. You'd think that's funny. Like, why would you have to take a praise and worship song off of your playlist?
Right.
And it was playing the night before I had to have the baby. Something had happened, and like a painful thing had happened with our relationship. Yeah. And that song was playing. And can't even like recall. So even if recounting it now will like bring me I'll tear up.
Right.
But but that specific song was playing, and so now to hear that song, I'm brought to that memory.
Right.
Even though it was like a praise and worship song, and I was trying to get my mind focused on, okay, I'm going to be having this baby tomorrow because I knew I was going to be induced.
Right.
And technically she wasn't born until like 2 days later.
She's like, I'll show you.
She did not want to come out. But I mean, I mentally was trying to spiritually and mentally, emotionally prepare for this baby coming. I had this praise and music, worship music on, and this other, side thing going on in my relationship and was happening, and not good. And man, so now this song was associated with that, and so now to have it, and I didn't really realize it, and then it came on and I realized I was being triggered by that, and I'm like, so I had to completely take it off my playlist.
Yeah, it can be good or bad, right? If it brings it back to a bad place, then it's not a good song anymore, and vice versa. There's
only a handful. Well, luckily it was we'll get to that too, but luckily it was from Bethel or Evelyn, one of those, I was like, it's probably a song I shouldn't have had on there. So, I mean, it could have been a worse song, but...
That's awesome. So, all right, you ready to jump into some politics?
I go back and forth on politics, to be honest.
I do too. I don't hold to any, same with my spirituality. I don't hold to any specific person or specific anything. I know there's some people that are like, Donald Trump's a perfect example, right? There's people that's like, nope, Trump all the way. Don't care what he says. Don't care what he does. I'm a Trump guy. It's like, I can never be that about anybody. You know, maybe Jesus, right? That's probably the only thing I could ever say that about. But like even within Christianity, it's like there's some people just hold to a teacher or a pastor and it's like, oh, whatever this guy says is golden.
You can't.
Not if it doesn't line up with scripture.
Well, I kind of go like, that's why it's good that you have those together because God told us like not to have a king, right?
Right.
We wanted one.
We wanted one.
You got what you asked for.
That's
People,
right.
Now we're still.
Yeah. Exactly.
Thousands of years later, still paying the price for it.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, we usually go one of two directions with it. You know, it's either kind of some people are very into talking about politics themselves, presidents, governors, that kind of thing, or it's more like issues with the country, like as far as like what a person thinks is the worst thing facing our country, or what things need to change. Like if you had the means, like you were the governor of California or you were the president of the United States, like where would you start? What would be your first kind of, you know what I mean? That's kind of the places to go.
I don't know where to start. I'm trying to think of where to even begin. I will say I go back and forth between paying attention and not paying attention.
So, to politics in general?
Yeah, to politics in general. I'll go back and forth. So if I find myself getting to... Because here's what happens. I pay attention and then I get angry.
Right.
And then I can't do anything about it. Mm-hmm. And then...
You can complain. I mean, that always helps.
It doesn't do anything. And here's what happens. I don't know how to refer to he who shall not be named. Because... It does tie into how I am, how I feel about politics. I have a bad taste in my mouth because I was with somebody for a long time who felt very strongly about politics.
Right.
It's so much so that it consumed, especially towards the end, a lot of energy, and I had to hear a lot of angry discussions and.
Between them and other people, you mean? Or like, were you guys on the same page a lot or no?
I think we were on the same page to an extent. Not necessarily. I think politically we felt similar. I didn't feel as strongly on certain things. If I had a disagreement, I didn't speak up about it.
Right.
Because I would be steamrolled over.
Yeah.
And it would be an argument.
Right.
So if I had a disagreement on something, very early on, I learned to be quiet about it.
Yeah. You choose your battles kind of thing.
Yeah. Because it just, it wasn't going to go anywhere. That family loves to debate. They love a good debate. And that's great.
Sure.
It was so stressful for me. I would just lose my mind. I'd have to walk away.
Right.
It's just too much because they all are just waiting for their turn to say what they want to say, and nobody's really listening.
Yeah, see, I hate that. I hate when you can tell when you're in a conversation with somebody like that, where they're not even listening to anything you're saying. They're just waiting for you to be quiet so they can say what they want to say. That's not a discussion to me. That's just like what's the point of even talking to somebody like that? It's like there's no point. You might as well just say, hey, I believe what I believe, you believe what you believe, great. Let's leave it there, you know?
Yeah, or they are listening, but the second you say it, they have their argument, like they're forming it.
Right.
So they're not listening to understand, they're listening to like tear it to pieces.
Yes.
And I think that's how it is even now with a lot of, I think people have lost the ability to agree to disagree.
Right.
People have lost the ability to listen, to understand, at least if they've made up their mind, well, I'm not going to agree, at least try to understand where they're coming from.
Sure. Because then you could even say, I totally understand, and sometimes I'll even explain to them, because you don't understand. No, let me explain to you where you're coming from, and you tell me if I'm right. And then I'll break it down. They're like, yeah, that's where I'm coming from. I say, okay, well, I disagree. You see, because then it's not me just trying to disagree with them, try to not understand where they're coming from. I understand completely where you're coming from. I just completely disagree with you, and then I'll be like, and here's why,
Yeah.
So, yeah, for sure.
Then at least you can have a better debate.
Hopefully, that's always the hope, but, you never know.
So I go back and forth, and because I think if you spend too much time being consumed by it, you kind of lose, it takes a lot of your energy, and then you're not focusing on your family and what's in front of you.
Right.
And there's not a lot you can do about it besides vote or, I mean, and even
that's kind of scary, right?
Yeah,
especially in California. You're like, what's the point?
Debate. I don't think, like, there was that thing where you can check to see for, I do vote. I will say that. I don't always know what I'm voting for. I try to look up the, like, propositions and all of that.
Right.
And as far as, like, the lower level people, I don't always know who I'm voting for. If it's super local and it's somebody I know sometimes,
right. And that could be good or bad, right?
That could be good or bad.
I'm not voting for that guy because I know him, or I'm voting for that guy because I know him.
Or there's like one, like state controller or whatever, like one person's name on there.
And you're like, what does that guy even do?
The airport thing. I've actually had this thought, maybe I should run against them.
Yeah, just so there's two people on the ballot.
I've actually Googled, like, what does this person do? Like, what is this job? Because why is there one person on the ballot for this particular job?
Yeah.
How much does this person, like, I'm Googling. Yeah. How much does this thing XYZ job make?
Yeah.
Why not? Like,
it's like looking for a new job, right?
Nobody's going against them.
Yeah, you might as well.
You might as well.
Yeah.
I mean, in that way, you actually have something to say if you want to complain about something.
Well, but except usually, if you're going to run, you usually have to put your own money into the campaign. And then if you lose, you're out,
But you might not have to put that much, because if you have a great sounding name, a lot of times people just...
Like that movie with Eddie Murphy. Did you ever see that one?
No.
Oh, what was the name of that movie?
Which one was it?
Oh, shoot. What was it called? I think it's from the 90s. But he basically, he was like a con artist, like street hustler kind of guy. And then there was a congressman who had the same name as him. And the congressman ended up dying. And he's just like a local congressman, so nobody really knew about it, right? But anyway, so he goes in and he just runs. Because people are always like, well, who do we vote for? Oh, we always vote for this guy. Just vote for this guy. And then he ends up getting in there. It's so fun. Distinguished Gentleman. That's what it's called.
Okay, I know the name, but I didn't see the movie.
Yeah, it was around the same time as like Boomerang and some of those other ones he did in the 90s.
It's a good movie,
yeah, so it's pretty funny.
Yeah, they go by however many signs you see.
Right.
And if the name sounds good or what the profession is under the name, sometimes people will go by that.
Right.
So, I mean, you don't necessarily have to really do anything.
Yeah.
So I'll pay attention for a while and then I won't. Working at a school, I definitely pay attention a lot more now.
Right.
Especially because I'll do like what's called push-in, because I work in special ed. And so with like mostly a lot of times kids with like learning differences.
Right.
Sometimes I'll just push into a class where I'll go and sit in and just kind of observe. And the cool thing about that is I'm learning the same time as the kids.
Oh, nice.
So, especially with the middle school.
Right.
And Miss A is such, we call her Miss A because kids can't always say her
Yeah.
But shout out to Miss A. If you're listening.
Because maybe she'll listen even if she won't be on.
She might listen. She's such a great teacher. But I'll learn a lot from her. She teaches history to middle schoolers.
Oh, okay. Wow.
And and there's some great stuff. And she'll do a lot of, she's really great too she's doing, like world history and stuff for like at least the 6th graders. And, but she'll put on a lot of current event things too, like blips of news, but she'll do stuff that's very, even like not biased. A lot of the news will be like one side or the other.
Right.
She finds this, I can't remember the name of it. It's like it's not ESPN because that is one bias. It's
Sports, you mean, or ESPN Sports?
No.
CNN?
Oh, it's CNN.
C-SPAN.
No, it is like CNN, but
Okay.
it's not like the skewed CNN. But it's like CNN. It's like for kids.
Oh, okay.
It's not for kids. It's I'm messing it up.
Yeah,
I should know this with as many times as I've seen it. I've worked there like 6 years. But it's like a breakdown. It's like quick little news blurbs, but it's very like non-biased, just news only, not like skewed.
Okay.
And then she'll kind of throw out there, not even her opinion, but again, she'll say like, some people can say this and some people can say that.
See, that's smart, because then let the kids make up their own minds. I love that.
It's so good. And she'll kind of say, well, some people say this, some people say that, and it's fantastic the way she puts the info out there.
See, that's the kind of teachers that should be out there.
I wish everybody
because
was
that's
like
that's perfect.
Honestly, she's really good at the way she does the info.
Right.
So it's nice because then if the kids have heard something like from home, it might give them a different like viewpoint, or if they've heard it not from home, like some other random source, it might give them a different viewpoint. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of like not.
Well, that's
really,
kind of the way I always feel. Yeah, you're fine.
fine.
That's how I always feel like with evolution versus creation, right? And they say, well, this shouldn't be taught in schools, and a lot of Christians will be up in arms. Evolution shouldn't be taught in schools. I said, no, teach evolution in schools, but teach creation too, and don't be biased, which is probably an impossible feat for either side of that usually, because if you're a Christian, you have your feelings about evolution, and if you're a evolutionary biologist, you have your feelings about creation. It's like, but just teach what we know. Just teach factual things and let them make up their own minds.
I think it's all about the way that information is presented.
Exactly.
And I think there are a lot of schools nowadays that are very biased and are like pumping out information, especially like universities.
Oh, for sure. It's pathetic.
If you weren't liberal before going to university, you're coming out liberal.
Well, and statistics show that now. If you look at the conservatives versus a liberal, and you look at by age demographic, it's almost all the under 20 somethings is like way high liberal.
Yeah.
And then all the over 50s, over 40s is way higher conservative. And what that tells you, if that continues, right, is by the time our kids have kids, and your kids are already having kids, but that we would get to that level, who knows what we're going to look like,
The funny thing, they're saying, well, the other side, I guess, or that side, I don't know if I take other, because I don't know like where exactly I fall in that. They're saying, well, that's because they're educated.
Right.
So they're quote unquote liberal, they have those beliefs. I don't know if they self-identify as liberal, some do. Because they're educated.
Right. And we're a bunch of dummies that don't know anything.
They're educated, and that's why they believe that way.
Yeah.
They're not seeing it as they've been,
brainwashed.
Indoctrinated.
Yes.
Because they've gone to the schools that have taught them that way.
Because these schools are not teaching them how to think, they're teaching them what to think.
They've been enlightened.
Exactly.
And they've come,
Yes.
So
they've been so enlightened that they don't even have an answer for you when you ask a simple question about their beliefs. That's how enlightened they are. It's like, well, what about this? You're a dummy head. Oh, that's a good answer. That's a good answer.
Yeah.
I'm glad you answered that so thoroughly.
And some do. Some have a really great reason for believing the way they do, and that's great. That's fine, and I'll take that. And okay, then if you have a good reason for it, fantastic.
Yeah, I respect somebody like that, even if they disagree with me.
Right.
Because at least they have a thought out answer to but most of the people I talk to like that, they don't. They pull rank and they try to say, oh, well, my professor has 2 PhDs. You whatever you say, whatever he says trumps your saying because you don't have a PhD.
Right.
That's irrelevant. Like, let's talk about the topic at hand, like the facts that are being presented. Right. That's what matters. So anyway, but I mean, I guess let's start if you're willing to talk about it. I mean, do you see yourself leaning one way over the other generally,
I definitely will because of my where my spiritual beliefs are. I would consider myself more conservative.
Okay.
I don't fall completely. There's a lot of areas where I don't think I fall completely fully into that group though. So I think I would differ in some of the areas.
Do you have examples of that? Something that most conservatives would believe that maybe you don't?
Okay, well, I don't like to be fully lumped into a lot of everyone's going crazy over the wall.
The wall from Mexico, you mean? Okay.
The wall.
Right.
I mean, I think border security is important, but I think and I wouldn't call myself a Republican. I actually switched that to more of libertarian. I think I'd say the less government, the better.
I would agree with you. Yeah.
I'd leave it more. I'd prefer to leave it more up to the states.
Yep.
As far as most topics except for abortion, because I know that's a controversial topic as well, which that's what we're here for. Yeah. But that is because I do believe that life starts at conception, and I'm fighting for the unborn at that point.
Yep.
And we can come back to that talking point if you'd like.
Sure.
Because I know that's a whole other thing in itself that people would like to argue, but going back to the other thing, I think border security is important. I don't think it's the most important issue. I think because of money and things like that, people do argue. I think security is important, and I don't think there's anything wrong with having security.
But you think the wall's a little much, is what you're saying?
I think it is. I think it's divisive. I don't think that building a wall is going to solve the problem, because the people that are trying to come for like nefarious reasons are still coming.
Sure. In
other forms. I think a lot of them are just flying over and not going back when the lease has expired.
So it would probably slow it, but it's obviously not going to prevent it.
Right. And I think the real problem is we have an issue with our system of getting people here. Like, I don't have a problem with people coming. I think, and this is where I think there's a lot of Christians that are giving themselves a really bad name, because there's a lot of Christians out there that are putting up all this really hateful stuff about immigration. That's just, maybe they mean well because of the security and the bad things that happen, but we do have a duty to take in, I think, foreigners and people that genuinely are trying to flee for their safety.
Right.
And it's just it does come across as really racist and like unloving, unkind. So I'd rather like try to come across as loving and kind and take in people that need to be now. When our family came over years ago, because my dad's family was immigrated here, I believe they had to have sponsors and things like that.
Where'd they come from?
Italy.
Okay.
And then my grandfather, my mom's side, they came from Austria.
Oh, nice.
So, and they were like Russian. Okay. And so they had to have sponsors and things like that. And so that's important. But working at a school too, and we have a lot of like Mexican families, and not a ton. I mean, no, I guess there are. It's pretty mixed there, but they're the families that I know of that have immigrated. They're very hardworking families. Oh, totally. And
harder working than a lot of Americans.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, for sure.
And my whole experience growing up, since here in this area since 9, all hardworking families working multiple jobs. This one kid in particular, and I can't ever say names, but literally works at the swap meet with his family every weekend, selling eggs and various like blankets and things. And when you talk to him about what he's going to do with his money, he's saving it for college. Wow! And this is a second grader. Yeah. Saving for college now. Yeah. And
find a second grade white kid who would say something like that.
Never in a million years.
What are you saving your money for? New Xbox.
Never in a million years. No, because they're not saving for an Xbox, because they already have
one.
Xbox, a PlayStation, and every gadget that you can think of. Yep. And so I have, I think, just a different opinion about it, because that firsthand knowledge and of meeting a lot of the families and knowing how hard they work and the need of them even being here. Right. And I think our system is broken. I think we need to find a way to get the families that want to be here. They are fleeing horrible conditions.
Right. So you think that all of those that are coming in for the right reasons and are going through the right channels should be allowed in?
I think so.
Right, and I would agree with you.
I think so, and it's really hard to weed through there, and I think that, and even you're saying the right channels. The problem is it's very expensive. It's hard to do. I think a lot of the people are going through the wrong channels because they're desperate.
Right. So you think that the right channels should be easier to access.
Right. Right. I think there's a lot of people that are trying to get over the wrong way because they're just desperate to.
What you see when they're actually dying trying to get over. So it's like, that tells you right there they're very desperate. Right.
We're born here and we're so lucky. Right. I can't even imagine to be born into a place where you're having to fear for your life and you're in these conditions where every day is a struggle like that, and you're just trying to think about how to survive or, how to better your life for your family or your children. And like, this place is within reach, that, if I could just get over there, we can make a life for ourselves. Right. And it's easy to understand why a lot will work here and send money home too, because then they want to get their family over here with them as well. Right. Because a lot of people will complain and say, oh, they work here and then they send our their money, they make the money, and then they just send it back over there. Well, it doesn't just stay there. It comes back over here because they're...
See, and that's what I have a hard time with, that kind of wording, especially when they use that kind of wording, because then it sounds like there's like this hatred there.
It does.
Like they this and they that. It's like, they what? I mean, if they're coming in legally, because, I mean, there's like this misconception that America is supposed to be white. It was never supposed to, like, that's the beauty of it, right? It's this melting pot. We have, I mean, where else in the world do you have all this mix of culture and ethnicity and all this stuff? It's so awesome, you know?
It is.
And I love that, you know? But when it gets that, like, us versus them mentality, the people that say something like that, well, they, what do you mean by they? And I feel like looking at him, I said, you do realize that your ancestors also immigrated over here at some point, right?
Yeah.
I mean, unless you're Native American or something, you don't have any say-so to the land, really, other than the same way. It's like, I understand that our border crisis right now is the southern border. I get it. I understand. So what you're saying is, the people coming over from Mexico. But that's just right now. Hundreds of years ago, it was your family coming from somewhere else,
you know? From the East Coast.
Exactly.
Flooding.
Going through New York and everywhere else.
New York and New Jersey.
Exactly.
And they were saying the same thing.
Exactly.
You know, we were being called WAPs coming over there.
Yes.
Still, you know, being called a WAP in high school. You know, without papers.
Yeah.
So, like, you know, the kids at school kind of joke around and make these, I had to give some warnings about that, some of the inappropriate jokes being said. But, you know, like, gosh, I didn't tell them what I was being called in high school.
Right.
You know, it's jokes, but still.
Exactly. Were you offended by that in high school, or did you kind of think it was funny?
It was said in like a teasing way. And I mean, I was born here. Right. But, you know, just being like, oh, you're Italian, you're a WAP, and, you know, kind of joking.
Yeah, because I heard it, because I'm sure you know, my family's Italian too. My grandma came over from Sicily and the whole deal. But I heard that term a lot growing up as joking around, like from people in my family and stuff. And it was never offensive, but I didn't even know what it meant.
Yeah.
I was like, WAP? What do you mean by WAP? You know? And then they told me without papers someday.
Yeah, we had papers though.
Yeah. You're like, we're WPs with papers.
We were stowaways or anything.
Right, exactly.
But yeah, so do you remember Mr. Harper? Did you ever have him at
Getty?
Okay, so I had him for that 4 years in Spanish.
Yeah.
Don't speak or understand any Spanish. Well, no, that's not true. I do, but for having an A all 4 years in Spanish, you'd think I'd be fluent.
Right.
He gave a lot of extra credit for going to baseball games, all kinds of fun stuff. But he showed us a lot of it. I mean, we watched a lot of novellas in that class. But he put on a couple of videos, like talking about indoctrination right now. This is maybe this is a little bit of indoctrination. I don't know. But he put on this movie, and it was about this. Couldn't tell you the name of it now, but it was a family that basically was fleeing Mexico, and it was this mom and a kid. I don't remember the name, but it was the conditions they went through to get from Mexico to here, and they were like crawling through this like sewage and these horrible conditions. I think the mom I couldn't believe this movie was being shown in high school, but I think the mom was raped at one point. Oh boy. And that always kind of stuck with me. And so then, like, it was always kind of in the back of my mind. So I had a little bit of perspective, I guess. So then when people like would angrily be talking about the Mexicans coming over or whatever, like, I kind of couldn't back that, like that hatred or that. Right. Because there was always a story. Like, you don't know the whole story. Right. And there's some great families. We have some amazing families that I've met. Sure. And there's not, there's going to be a handful that are going to be bad. Right. But again, most of them are not coming over that way. A lot of them are just, you know, there are tunnels and things. They're not using a wall. They're not climbing over the wall. Right. They're tunneling or they're flying over. Honestly, the biggest terrorists are probably the governments that are exchanging the guns and things that way. Right. I hate to say it. No, it's true. It's I think that's a bigger problem than anything we got going on. I think the backdoor deals behind the governments are a bigger issue. Right. I think that's the wall stuff. I think that's smoke and mirrors. And it gets people arguing. Right. So we're so busy arguing with each other that they got this other stuff going on. Right. So yeah, that's my take on that, and it's sad because a lot of people I'm good friends with, or old neighbors and things like that. They're, I don't.
That are illegals, you mean, or
no, that are really angry, and a lot of Christians that I see that are like so about the border and so like angry all the time, and I'm like, yeah, we've got to be finding a way to help people. There's people that are in genuine need of it, and I think I don't know if it was on your podcast or what we were talking about, like the Chinese that are a bigger threat maybe than.
I think somebody said that. Yeah, I don't remember who it was. And
I kind of looked into that, and that's true. Like I'd be a little more worried about like Chinese spies coming than than like some drug problems coming. Although like the fentanyl is a big issue.
That's a big deal right now. Well, see, but that's what I was going to say is that all we really know about any of that is what the media gives us. Right. So we're hearing all about fentanyl, and we're hearing about, all these ER trips for young kids who think they're doing nothing but smoking weed, come to find out that it's laced with fentanyl or whatever. And I'm always like, well, like, what's the point? Like who gains from that? Like, say I'm a drug dealer and I'm going to lace my weed with fentanyl. Am I hoping to get them hooked so that they'll start buying fentanyl from me? I mean, like, what's the deal? Like,
no, whenever I see those, those always crack me up. Oh my gosh. Whenever Halloween comes around.
Exactly. That's another good point.
Oh, that cracks me up.
Yeah.
I'm like, no one's going to be giving away free drugs.
Exactly.
People.
Especially to people you can't keep track of. I would understand if it was the same kids you see every day.
It's not happening.
Let's get them hooked. And then
It's just not happening, guys.
Right.
Like, stop falling for that garbage.
But we do the same thing with the media.
Like, you're not even giving free stuff away to your loyal customers. You're not going to be giving it away to random kids off the street.
Well, but that's what I'm saying too. Like with just what we buy into, and even things with like the wall, right? Trump's in there, and he's got all this stuff going on. Supposedly, kids in cages, all this stuff that's being said, and then you have people like Candace Owens going down to the border and taking actual video. And I don't know if you ever saw that. That's the first video that really kind of put her on the map. Okay. That's before she had. Do you know who Candace Owens is?
Yes.
Before she had a show. Before she was with Daily Wire. Any of that stuff. She was. That's the first time I ever saw her. She had a video where she was just furious, and she's down there and she's like, "Look at this!" And she's actually showing video of these border. Whatever you call them, where they're holding like people. Yeah. And they're like, do you see any of this? The media is telling you this is happening. This is that. Where is that? You show me where that is. And she was ticked. Yeah. And then that's what that video went viral, and everybody was talking about her after that. But so, I mean, it's hard to know what we can believe, right? Because they're saying all this stuff, and then Biden gets in there, and then he starts doing the same thing, supposedly.
But there's no news on it.
Yeah, of course. Well, that's fine. But now it's okay
there's
that Biden's doing it.
There's a Switchfoot song called Selling the News. That's a good song.
Yeah, that is a good one.
Same thing. It's so hard to believe anything. Because, again, the news, and what is the news is, like, who's behind that even?
Mm-hmm. Well, we know who's behind that. I mean, regardless, and if people on the left don't at least admit to that, then they just need to look at you can take the same cases and see the way they're presented. And you can tell, okay, this is a left-leaning, news source. And even things like Fox News, which claims to be conservative, even some of their stuff is left-leaning. It's just like, wait a minute,
Yeah.
So it's hard.
It's a tough one. So I tend to vote with, I try to look at the people, like you say the same thing too, like individually.
Yeah. Exactly.
The positions individually based on my own personal beliefs.
I would vote for a Democrat if he lined up with more of my values than the Republican candidate did.
Yeah, I don't see that happening.
I don't either, but I would. In theory, I would.
Yeah, in theory.
Right.
I don't think I would be super opposed to like a war here where we just wipe the slate clean and start over. No, I don't. Yeah.
I wouldn't be opposed to just nuking the whole country and taking the 4 people left and letting them procreate.
I don't want a war. But I could see a civil war breaking out the way things are.
Right. Well, because the country's getting so polarized.
It's so bad.
It's been worse than it's ever been, I think.
I feel like it is also. And so coming from somebody who sits in middle school learning about all of these different, ancient countries and up all the way into modern it's scary because one of the common threads throughout history is a lot of the countries' downfalls are they divide and conquer, right?
Right.
So these countries are divided, and then these other countries come in and they take advantage of that. There's infighting, and then, or they're like, you know, think that nobody could touch them because they're way up here on top, and then they're not paying attention.
Right.
And meanwhile, these other countries come in, and I think we're in both of those spots right now.
Yes.
I think it's like the perfect storm. Like we are completely divided as a nation, and then we also feel like we're on top numero uno world power.
Right.
And those
we're overly cocky.
Yeah. Recipe for disaster.
Right. Well, and then you look at, I think his name's Mark Milley. He's one of the defense guys, the military guys, but they were talking a while back about how one of their, you don't hear as much about this anymore, but everybody was talking about doing this, making everything more diverse, right? That was the whole push. Like even, I think it was United Airlines or whatever, said, we're going to make sure that at least 50% of our pilots are women or LGBT or something, right? Like, and this guy, Mark Milley, comes out with the military and he says, yes, we're making a point to make sure that we have more transgender in the military, we have more homosexuals in the military. And I'm like, hey, if trans person wants to get in the military, I'm not saying they can't. Fine, go for it. But the fact that that's our criteria scares me a little bit, you know, because again, your potential, same with the air pilots. It's like, okay, we have this white man who scores for being a pilot. I don't even know how to score that, but let's say he's got 90%.
Yeah.
But then over here, you've got this transgender woman who's a minority group, and her test scores are 40%. But we're going to take her simply because of her intersectional qualities. And I'm like, that's not for the best of the people, right? But it's also equally wrong to say, if it was switched, right, to say, oh, we're going to take the white guy because we don't want a transgender person, even though their scores are 95% and the white guys are 40%.
Right.
That would be wrong too. We need to start doing things based on who's the best person for the job. I don't care if you're male, female, gay, straight. I don't care.
Right.
Just as long as you're the best, right? You know, that's who I want. Agree. That's who I want flying my plane. Someone who knows what they're doing and is going to be able, in a crisis, he's going to be able to land me safely or whatever, you know. And the military, I mean, you're talking about the people that are fighting to keep us safe. I want the Arnold Schwarzeneggers in there, right? I want those guys. I want Rambo in there. That's who I want.
So it's so funny because people will complain about the military spending, but until there's a problem,
right?
And then they need our military,
right,
to come in.
Which is like the gun control thing, right? Oh, get rid of all guns. The Congress people say as they walk down the street with 6 armed guards on each side of them. It's like, and they have armed security at their house. It's like, what? Whoa, wait, what? What?
And then they'll complain about the military spending, and then they'll want more benefits for our vets.
Right.
And they'll complain about the military spending, and then they'll think our soldiers need more money, like to live. Which I agree with all of that. I think they should.
Right.
So they equate military spending with like we're buying guns and tanks and things to blow things up. And a lot of it is going to that.
Right.
They don't need a $900 hammer. Right. You know? So I get that part of it.
Right.
I do. But there's a big part of it. Like I think that maybe that needs to get audited.
Yeah.
You know.
Definitely.
I think that stuff needs to get audited. Right. But if it's going towards supporting our current soldiers and giving them like living expenses and giving our vets more benefits and stuff like that. I think it's super important, sending random money to foreign countries, maybe not the best idea.
So you don't have a Ukraine flag on your car is what you're saying?
I don't. I don't. I think it's great if we support our allies, but it's like our allies should also support us too.
Yeah.
I think we're scratching at a lot of backs that aren't necessarily scratching our own.
Right.
I think they're scratching ours when it comes to like oil and things like that.
Right. Things that benefit high government.
Yeah, high government is the key words. I think our and I am for. I have such a you'll hear this when my daughter's on the show. I'm sure she has a much different opinion about the military now that she's been in the military.
Oh, see, she'll be fun to talk to then.
Oh, she will be for sure. I think it's important. Military is important. We have to have security.
Right.
But I think our military's changed a lot over the years, and I think really it hasn't been the same since after World War II. I think we went from being the good guys and kind of being like protectors to kind of being bullies since then, and being a little more selfish and protecting our own interests.
Right.
And I think people still see us as I think people that live here still kind of like to see the U.S. as like the good guys, and we want to think of ourselves as like the good guys, and everyone wants to get to the U.S. because it's like the good place to be, which it is.
Right.
Like we are still like the land of opportunity, and I mean we're gotten away from being like a Christian nation. I don't know that we ever really were.
Yeah, definitely a deist nation. I think.
I think we had good intentions starting out that way.
Right. Well, a friend of mine brought up the point one time. He said, if we were started as a Christian nation, then freedom of religion never would have been in there.
That's
They just would have said, nope.
You're a Christian.
You're Christian or you're out.
Right.
This is our national religion. You have to follow it,
That's a good point.
Which would have been like communism, basically, by forcing that on people. But that's
true.
Yeah, that was the founding of the country.
Freedom. Well, and that in itself, I mean, we'll get to that, but God gave us freedom of choice as far as to serve him or not.
Right. Unless you're a Calvinist.
That's right. Good point. Touché, my friend. So, I mean, in that sense, God gave us that freedom, unless you're a Calvinist. And so we gave the people that choice as well to worship or not. So we gave them that freedom. So now here we are. And I think now that got me kind of off topic with my train of thought.
I don't remember where we were either, so it's not your fault.
With where we were going after.
We're talking about military.
Okay. So we see ourselves as like these good guys, but other countries, if you talk to somebody out of the country, they see us as like bullies.
Oh yeah.
Big time.
Yeah, a lot of other countries hate America.
And I recently saw this like little blip. It could have been like cut out too, but it was like this clip with Trump, and somebody was asking him about Putin and if he respects him or not, and talking about like he respects him because he's a leader of a country, doesn't mean he likes him or something like that. And I think, they kind of talk out of both sides of their mouth, the politicians.
Of course.
They're not going to say something, they're going to say something bad and good.
Right.
You don't want to offend Putin. Right. But you don't want to praise him either, because then you're like, what the heck?
Right.
And then the guy was like, well, he's a killer. And then I think Trump's response was something like, well, you don't think we've done bad things?
Right, yeah.
Like, it was kind of funny. And he was like, we've done bad things too.
Right.
But he really, it was almost refreshing to hear that, because it's bad, but...
Right, but it's true and honest.
It's true, and it was honest.
Yeah, and that's why a lot of people went for Trump, I think, because they said, okay, I don't agree with everything he says, but I believe he's telling me the truth.
And so I liked that, and I'm not a big Trump guy. I mean, I initially voted for him, and gosh, I don't know if I should even say that out loud. Fired or something.
Isn't that sad?
I know, it's so sad. Because I thought, it was so funny. I'd shared that meme before the election with him and Hillary of was it Ace Ventura or that movie when it was Jim Carrey, and he was stabbed in the leg with the arrow, and he was each leg, and he's it was yeah, it was Trump or Hillary. That's kind of where I was at that point. I was trying to choose, but no.
I love that scene.
Yeah, that was a funny.
That was a second Ace Ventura movie.
But that little clip though, it was kind of nice to hear that, because it was an honest answer, and it's sad, but it's true, because our country really, we've done some, he said, in the video, we've done some horrible things. Sure. And he said, I've never agreed with the war in Iraq. And, I remember, even, was it when Kuwait got attacked? We were, junior high age. Right. And that was the first war I really remember, because we had a social studies teacher at Fessler, Miss Fish, that would always, kind of update us on that. And that's the first one I remember ever paying attention to. That was the Gulf War, right? Yeah, the Gulf War. And that was all over oil. Yeah. It wasn't us protecting this little country that was being attacked.
Well, not just for that. We were protecting this little country, but why? Yeah. Because they have something that benefits us.
It wasn't oh man, these little guys are getting attacked.
Right.
Yeah, come save them.
Yeah.
We're these heroes. Right. No, it was we need this oil.
Exactly.
And wow, we are just we're out for us.
Yep.
And so then now I'm like, okay, there's these powers that be that sit up on this throne, and our soldiers are these pawns. And they're just like playing this game. Like, I imagine almost like this game board, or like this, like they're in this war room and they're moving these pieces around a table, and every piece they move around and they're like doing these strategies, we're losing tens of thousands of people.
Right.
And to them, it's just a moving of a chess piece.
It's exactly,
or whatever.
That's a good point.
And we're losing actual lives and brothers and sisters. And
we're losing pawns.
Yes.
To the king and the queen, it's just pawns.
Yes.
But to the family of the pawns, it's like, what in the world?
It's life.
Right.
And it's life, and it's tax dollars.
Right.
So it's real life, it's money. It's like actual, like, there's something to it. To them, it's a move. It's do we, even, I mean, I think there was even some of that in World War II when we dropped the bombs, right? That was a big, I think with that though, it was weightier. I think that was probably a really heavy thing that they had to weigh out. I don't think that was a flippant decision. Killing, tens of thousands of people of innocent lives.
Right.
I think that was probably a heavier one of deciding, are we killing these civilians quickly and ending this war?
Right.
Or are we going to carry this out for months or even years and take, all this money more, all these soldiers more?
Right.
That was probably a heavier decision, and who knows what the right decision was.
Well, and it's hard when you're not just attacking their military, when civilians are getting involved. And then with the bombs, there's that one iconic photo of that little girl running, and she's like naked and she's running away, and I think it's her brother that's next to her, and just the look on their faces is just utter terror. And the caption says they're running from the bombs were just dropped. And then you talk about the people that were killed instantly from that, but then there was people that lived for 30, 40, 50 years that had issues for the rest of their life just from the fallout, and it's just like
effects that came later.
Totally. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, shadows on the wall, like of just people that were just poof. Like, I think that was a weightier. I don't think that was just like this. There's probably a lot of stress with that one. I don't think that was just like, these guys.
Let's push the button.
Yes. That, I think from that point on, though, I don't know how much they stress out over it. Maybe they do, maybe they don't, but there's just so much fighting and war over stuff like that's like, it's all strategy and money, and it's sad. It's like I get too worked up about it.
Right.
So it's hard to think about, because it's just like it's all for nothing, especially when you tie in the spiritual aspect of it.
Right.
It's like for nothing.
Right.
And then we're just raking up all this money that our generations are going to have to pay for, and we don't see any of it. There's no benefit to us, and it doesn't really help our safety any. I mean, it might hold people off a little bit longer from invading the United States.
Right.
We do have a lot of military stationed all over the world. I think we're one of the only countries that have bases all over. I'm not sure like the statistics on that.
You mean in other countries? You mean like what do they call those?
Not bases, but
there's a name for those. Shoot.
I know that the name is escaping.
Oh, it's right on the tip of my tongue.
Me too.
They're called embassy.
Embassies.
Yeah.
I mean, I know other countries have embassies too, but I think we have like tons, like all over.
Right.
And not all the countries have them everywhere.
No. Well, not all countries have as strong militaries as we do either.
And then, so we have a lot of embassies all over the world. And then I know at any given time, like we have like military stationed at certain places that if need be, they can go into action.
Right.
I think more than we have like published, quote unquote, that if need be, they can. So, I mean, that kind of gives me a little bit of like, I don't know, it's kind of, I think it's almost a false sense of security, really. Because we don't know what kind of nuclear...
Well, and they're talking a lot now about like germ warfare.
Yeah.
Right. That's kind of the new thing that's coming in when people talk about China. And of course, this is just hearsay, right? There's no proof of this at this point. But they talk about places like China that are just like, no, we don't need to bomb them. we'll just send over a virus that'll wipe them all out.
Right.
You know?
They're walking around. We were doing, I think it was actually on one of the news things that Jen put on, where I could be wrong about this. They had this thing, like this parade thing, and they're all walking around in these hazmats.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're ready.
Right.
They're ready for that warfare.
Right.
And we have nothing. We have nothing
for that. Right.
Nothing for that.
Our guns and our tanks won't be able to stop that.
Nope. There's nothing
right.
for that.
Right.
For that type of warfare. And then there's all this stuff with space.
Right.
Like stuff with like they want to wipe out electronics and all that. Look how dependent we are.
Oh my gosh.
What are we gonna do?
Yeah,
we completely lost touch.
Well, there was a TV show like that where all the energy just went away all at once.
Was it like Last Man Standing type of show, or like a funny one?
No, it was like a drama. It was kind of like Lost.
Okay.
But it was like all at once, all of the energy, not just computers and electricity, but literally all forms of energy. So like every car stopped, every plane stopped. There was no energy at all, right? All at once, and they just basically had to go back to living like bush people. They had nothing. It was just like in an instant they were back to caveman days, just like that. You know, I think it only lasted like one season. I forgot what it was called. A friend of mine was actually the cinematographer on it.
Oh,
but,
wow. That's cool.
Yeah, but I forgot the title. Bethany and I watched most of the first season, and then they canceled it. So
yeah,
bummer.
We're not ready for that.
No.
Too close to reality.
No,
we can't handle that.
Well, it would really weed out the weak from the strong, I think, very quickly.
Yeah,
right. Like
for sure.
Especially now. So we talk about this demographic of age, right? You got all these smarty Berkeley kids that are 18. They wouldn't survive in something like that. Yeah. It would be the old guys that would be more survivalists.
Well,
you know,
the crunchy ones like Brianna, she'd do good.
Oh well, sure.
They'd be homesteading.
Yes.
That'd be thriving in that.
Right. Yeah.
Well, they would be able to pull up their the recipes and stuff.
Yes.
Well, they'd have it written down.
Yeah, their hummus recipes and everything like that. Yeah.
No, but yeah, they'd be great. They'd probably be all collected together and milking each other's cows and stuff. They'd be great.
Right. They go back to the bartering system.
Oh man.
I'll trade you some milk for some cucumbers or something. You know.
They'd love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I got so off topic there, but yeah, I have a hard time. Like I'm patriotic ish. But I have a hard time because I see this military as like bigger picture, looking at it from the spiritual aspect, as these guys are just like these kings are all, I look at them all as kings.
Right.
They're all just trading whatever commodities with each other and at the sake of our lives.
Right.
And we're sending our soldiers off.
Yeah.
And they're
well, and the hardest part about all that to me is that we really just don't know the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you got people that are just diehard government enthusiasts, and they're just like, oh no, our government wants only the best for us, and they're doing all the right things, we just need to trust them. But then you got people all the way on this side, they're like, oh, it's all a conspiracy, and what's really going on is Biden's trading with China, and you got all, and either side may be true, but the what you come down to is, how do we know that?
Yeah.
Where's the proof or evidence of either of those things? Oh, you don't need evidence. You just need to know. You just trust me. It's like, I'm not just going to trust you on anything, but I'm not going to trust my government on anything either. Yeah. I'm just here, right? And that's where trust in the Lord comes in, because it's like, he knows what he's doing, and I know he has my best interest in mind.
Right.
So whether I live or die tomorrow, whatever's, right?
Yeah,
so
gosh, we didn't even talk about conspiracy theorists. That's a whole other.
Yeah.
That's a whole other thing.
You like those, or where do you fall?
Sometimes they're interesting. You can go down a rabbit hole with those.
Yeah, right.
Big time.
Yeah.
I like the fun ones that I think I could really believe and get behind are a lot of like the stuff with the Masons. Have you seen all those?
Like the Freemasons?
Yeah, the Freemasons.
Yeah.
Like all the stuff like with politics and the politicians.
Right.
And like,
Illuminati and all that kind of stuff.
I don't know. I don't deep dive too much into that. Oh gosh, John was like so into all of the.
Yeah, I've had conversations with him about that stuff. Yeah.
Because of like all the government buildings, and we watched some videos on that in the past, but like all the government buildings, the way they're built and their angles to like the sun or whatever, and the all those phallic.
That was weird.
I believe. So
what was it? Are you talking about those things that were appearing everywhere for a while, or are you talking about something else?
No, all of they're all like, what's it called at the
Washington Monument?
Yeah, so the Washington Monument and all of those all over the world, those are all like like Baal or they're all like basically.
Oh, like from the Bible.
Yeah,
like,
they're all like they're all over the world. It's all like it's like a pagan worship.
Okay.
It's all like a supposedly like this pagan worship symbol.
But isn't that hard to buy? Like, even you take the Washington Monument. I mean, do you really think people in Washington, D.C. are like, when it's dark, they all go out there and they worship cats on the altar of...
I don't think they're currently doing it. Okay. But I think the roots of it...
Okay.
I think they all probably come from the same, like, initially the same. I don't think that's what they probably were...
You don't think it's still that today? That was the origin, maybe?
I think that's the origin of it. I don't think that was maybe what they're doing now.
Right.
But,
and that's because of the shape of them, the tall, skinny kind of things. Okay.
I mean, there's.
How about the Eiffel Tower?
Yeah.
Is that like the French?
Yeah.
Baal worship?
Maybe. I don't know if I could be wrong. I may not be Baal, but or like
something.
One of the I think it came from like the Egyptians or something. Okay. I have to look into it.
Okay.
I saw some crazy, but it could be part of the conspiracy theorist stuff. That might have been one of the ones I bought into.
Well, that's my whole thing, right? There's certain people that they watch these videos and they're just sold.
Yeah.
Oh, this has got to be. How does that got to be true? Well, I have always known that, and that's usually what it comes to. Well, I've always known there was something, and this just confirms what I've always known.
Well, the Illuminati stuff is kind of convincing when you start to see like I don't know about the full Illuminati thing, but the Freemasonry stuff and because people that have come out of Freemasonry stuff that have talked about it, because then you have like firsthand accounts of people that like, I was into that.
Right.
Or my so-and-so like family member was I don't even know what to talk about, degrees or...
Right. A grand poobah or something.
Yeah. They have like firsthand accounts or secondhand accounts of it. Not firsthand because that would be them.
Right.
But then there's some weird stuff. And different presidents, and then you come to find out like all of these people that are in office, and then they're shaking hands with so-and-so who also...
Yeah, but you can go down that same road and find out that like Jimmy Carter supposedly had meetings with aliens from other planets, and like, it's like that kind of thing. I mean, it's like, am I going to sit here and deny that there's aliens? No, because I don't know. But I also don't see any evidence for it.
Yeah.
I don't see any evidence against it either, but that's not a way to argue, right? Well, there's no evidence against it.
It's not necessarily that you have to prove it, but the speculation is just, it's just to speculate. And that's the thing. But then if somebody comes out about it, then they're called crazy.
Yes.
Like if somebody does say, oh no, like...
Right.
I was there. I did do XYZ. Like even like going back to Trump.
Yeah.
They come out and say, oh, so-and-so did XYZ. Or the people, like the Epstein stuff. Why did all these people start dying?
Right.
Like the people that did come out and whistle blow, they just were,
kill them off too, right?
You could talk about the Clinton family, but then I might be, and then what's it? You can't say killed anymore. It's,
canceled?
No, well, not canceled, but like on the internet, you can't say killed or
died. Like they'll censor you.
Unended or, there's like a word for it.
I don't know.
Where your life is ended. It's
terminated.
Unlifed or
unlifed. There's all these different words they use now, right? Like unhoused people or homeless people.
There's like a way of saying like died or something, but it's just you gotta kind of wonder, right? You're like, that's kind of
and it's fun. And I mean, like just recently, this guy, I don't know if you saw this video or not, but the guy that made the 911 call. This is like last week, and the guy claims that a craft had crashed in his backyard.
Oh, no.
And he was talking about these like 9-foot tall beings that were in his yard. Like it was nuts. You're listening to it going, oh my gosh.
He's on some sort of trip.
Yeah, and then there's this government guy who's like a whistleblower now who's coming out and he's talking about how the government has all these crafts that are made out of metal that have never been found on Earth and like just crazy stuff like that. And it's intriguing. It's like, dude, really? Wow.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Like you said, there's no evidence of it yet that we see. That I don't know. It's not really talked about too much in the Bible. Right. Like it's not talked about in the Bible.
Right. Unless it's the Nephilim.
Maybe.
That's what some people will say.
As far as I know, that they all got wiped out.
Right. Right.
Or an evil.
Or they developed a spaceship and they flew to another planet. And now they're coming back to test us by probing and putting metal in our bodies.
I think if something like that does. I think people can be deceived in that way. Like maybe it could be like a demonic thing, and the people can say, "Oh, that's an angel."
There you go.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I think I'm a little more concerned. I think people should be a little more concerned over things like AI. That's actual, tangible things.
Yes.
Than any like speculation of like conspiracy theories.
Well, the AI thing is scary to me because they can. I'm looking at framing. How you can frame people like for crimes they didn't commit and stuff, right? Because you can
like
make it look
like the movie with the dreams. What was that movie? Was it
Inception?
Yeah.
Yeah. With DiCaprio? Yeah. A dream within a dream within a dream within a dream.
Or no, I'm thinking of the one with Tom Cruise, I think.
Oh, the Minority Report, or no? What's the other one?
Where they're like predicting the dream, like the people are dreaming.
Oh, Vanilla Sky.
And
is that the one you mean?
No, the people are dreaming, and they see the murder before it happens, and then they go arrest them.
I think that's Minority Report, isn't it?
Maybe. I'm terrible.
Yeah, I think that might be Minority Report.
So I'm a little concerned about AI also. It's just funny because what's his name? Tesla.
Oh, Elon Musk?
Yes.
Yeah.
Way back before it was even a thing, he was saying, like, government needs to get on top of this and come up with some, like, laws and guidelines now. Mm-hmm. Because what happens, like, I saw this old interview with him. Might have even been on, like, one of his YouTube channels or something. And he was talking to this interviewer saying, like, what happens is these natural disasters or something happens, and then the government comes in after the fact, and then they try to do cleanup. Mm-hmm. And then they try to say, okay, well, we need to do this. He's like, by the time that happens with the AI, it will be too late. So they need to come in now before it happens and set everything up in advance.
You mean making laws against certain things?
And like guidelines of like what's allowed, what's not allowed, like get everything set up ahead of time.
Right.
And they didn't do that. And now it's here.
Right.
It's like already, and AI can do like now it could be lawyers and like there's everything. Yeah. People are cheating on tests and they're selling homes and they're like, I can write an entire lesson plan by asking I haven't used it yet, but like teachers can write out lesson plans and be like, okay, well I have this many students and I need to teach about, X, Y, Z, and it's crazy.
It's scary. Yeah.
And that's just the practical, that's just like the fun, like helpful part of AI. Right. That's not even like the dangerous part of it.
Right. Right.
I mean,
Did you see the video of the mom that was talking about how her daughter was kidnapped? Did you see that?
No.
So her mom, she got a call from her daughter, and her daughter is crying and screaming and saying, "Mom, they have me, help me, please help me." And then some man gets on the phone and says, "You need to send this much money or we're going to kill your daughter."
I've seen that's like a common like phone call people get sometimes.
Right.
Okay.
So she sends the money and she does the whole thing or whatever. Well, it turns out that wasn't even her daughter. It was AI. They had somehow cloned her daughter's voice so perfectly that she was so convinced it was her daughter.
It's so scary.
Yeah. Isn't that nuts?
That's crazy.
It's scary stuff. Because, I mean, what are you going to do? You get a call from your daughter. I would send the money if I had it. And if I didn't have it, I'd find it somewhere. I mean, if I was convinced it was my daughter, like, there's no amount of money I wouldn't pay to make sure she's safe.
That's just still when we have control of AI. Have these people not seen any of the movies?
You'd think so, yeah. You'd think.
Any of the movies that we've come out with over the years?
Yeah.
I get it. They're movies.
Right.
But come on.
Right. Like, the movies can be prophetic, right?
I mean they're pretty scary.
Right.
Like, I don't even want to think about the potential of what can happen here with this. It's just, I think we're playing with some stuff we shouldn't be playing with.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Scary.
It's a little scary.
Yeah.
That's totally off topic from politics, I think.
Hey,
but,
we're just we're just running it, you know? It's just fun.
I think the government should have stepped in. If we're going to use AI, maybe that should be our pawns. Maybe we should be like clones. Like
like Star Wars.
Like Star Wars.
Yeah.
Maybe we should send the AI in to fight the battles for us.
That's a good idea.
We kind of have that with the drones, right? Mm-hmm. I'd be more on board for that and just let all the drones do the fighting. Mm-hmm. But then we have like drones killing drones, and then who's like,
which you're not really killing it.
Yeah.
Right. There's nobody in it.
Yeah. You just be. Money.
But what was that movie with the big machines that were fighting against each other? Not Transformers, but it was like what's it called? Pacific Rim. Did you ever see the Pacific Rim? Oh, okay.
I don't think I saw that.
That was kind of cool. So I think that's what our military should do, because then there's nobody actually dying.
Yeah.
It's just like a big...
We spend a lot of money.
We spend a lot of money. Yeah, of course. I mean, you can't imagine this thing's probably $1 million each.
Oh, that's the other thing. Like the debt. Have you ever pulled up that calculator where it shows like our debt? It's just insane.
Right.
You can't even wrap your mind around that amount of money.
I know.
And it's just ticking. And I don't think...
And then they just raised the debt ceiling recently? Or something. I think Biden
crazy.
Raised the debt ceiling.
It's crazy, and people are all on board for that.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I have family members that are like, "Oh, I think they need to hurry up and do that," and I'm like, "What are you saying?
Right.
Do you know what you're saying?
Yeah.
Do you know that your like children's children are going to be paying this every time they want to send us a stimulus check?"
Exactly. I was just going to bring that up. Yes.
Don't send me any more money.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
Yeah,
totally.
I could use the money. Don't get me wrong. Like, I'll take it. But don't send us any more money.
Right.
Because I tell you, for every freaking $500 they send to me, they're sending some other country money. Or they're putting it in some ridiculous, like, bill or some crazy, like, the bloat is just ridiculous.
Right.
It's just crazy.
Yeah, and when's it going to stop? You know, and that's what people say. Who do we keep borrowing money from? Who? From China? Or from whoever? That's not good.
Okay, so here's...
You don't want to be indebted to any other country.
Going back to the conspiracy thing, here's where I do think there's an issue, is the Fed. Like, the whole audit the Fed thing. And that's when Kennedy was offed. Like, that needs to happen. Like, maybe I'm going to be off now.
Yeah.
Well, if anybody listens to the podcast.
You mean to end that?
Well...
To like get rid of the FBI and get rid of all that?
Well, the Fed itself, like how could we audit the Fed? Like it's not even, it's like its own private entity. It's not even government.
It's like untouchable.
Like I don't know if anybody even really realizes that. Like how many Americans actually know that that's like not even a government thing?
Right.
I don't know how many Americans know that we're not even like on the gold standard.
Or
just like for like money.
Oh, right.
That we're like, I mean, we're just like printing off all this
money. Right.
Doesn't really mean anything.
I need to get one of those machines is what I need.
Yeah.
Just print off a bunch of hundreds whenever I have to pay a bill or something.
People like, what's the guy's name from Rich Dad, Poor Dad?
Oh, yeah. Robert something.
Yeah, it starts with a K.
Yeah, Kazuko or something like that, yeah.
He's telling everyone, buy silver and gold, or, get silver and gold. He's probably got some interest in it, but, he's all about the properties and businesses and things like that. And he's like saying, invest in silver and gold, your money's going to be worthless. And, I try to pay attention a little bit to that stuff because it's like, I mean, how long am I actually going to be here? I promise tomorrow. So I try not to put my my investments and stuff like that.
Right.
But, if you do want to think about wealth in terms of like, if you want to leave something for your children, okay, like land, if you can buy any sort of property, that's something tangible that's going to build, and stuff. Silver, gold might not be a bad idea because you don't know if the dollar, like that might hold its value, whereas the dollar is not.
Right.
I don't see, especially with inflation right now, and inflation is just ridiculous. Like even if you have money in a savings account, it can't keep up with like the interest is not even touching inflation.
Yeah.
So the rich keep getting richer and the poor keep getting poorer, and people want to complain about that. The tax laws are set up for people with money, with properties, but if you have properties, you're not going to complain, because it's great. Like if you have properties, it's a fantastic.
So how would you fix the tax thing? Would you think it should be straight percentage? Do you think that no matter how much you make, you should pay the same percentage of what you make?
I don't know.
Or do you?
I don't know, honestly. That's a great question because that's a tough one.
Yeah.
It really is a tough one.
Because rich people would be paying more than everybody else if you're paying a percentage of $1 million a year as opposed to $40,000 a year.
The problem with that, the only problem with that is that it makes it really hard for the people that are in the middle to ever then get ahead. Because then it's like the amount they pay then would almost keep them down.
Well, but it'd be the same percentage for them too. Like let's say it was 2% of your income and you make $100,000 a year, you'd be paying $20,000 in taxes or $2,000 in taxes. But if you make $10 million a year, you're going to be paying like a lot more.
So the way it works out too, with like, there's so many write-offs. But the thing is that when you have money and you're rich and like in the millions, most people that are in that kind of money, they have businesses and they have properties to where that's why they're not paying taxes. People want to give Trump all of this like grief because he's not paying taxes.
Right.
That's because he's got a great accountant. It's not because he's dodging paying taxes.
Right.
It's because he's a scumbag guy. I guarantee you, everybody else with that kind of money, they're all doing the same thing. It's because that's how the tax laws work. Because if you have that much money, you're going to own property or you're going to own businesses.
Write-offs,
and then there's all the write-offs that come along with it, especially on the properties. And that's fantastic. I want to own property so I can have those.
Right.
So I don't know if I want to change them because I want to be there. I'm working towards that. I want to get a multifamily property and live in a portion and, I want to start building that way.
Do you really think about that? Because
I absolutely do.
That's something we've thought about too. Like my cousin in Washington has wanted that for years.
I listen to a lot of podcasts and I like Bigger Pockets and there's a bunch I listen to, but
but like how many acres do you hope to have, like, and how many families would you want on it?
Okay, well that's a separate thing.
Oh, okay.
That's a separate thing. I would love to do that with like Brianna and stuff.
Right.
We've talked about getting some acreage. I'm not sure. She wants to only be in California, which it's going to be really hard for me to ever do that.
Why? Because she grew up here?
She grew up here. She always hated, like, she'll tell you more about it when she's on her show. She always said, like, everything's the same here. I can't wait to leave. She, joined the Army, and she was in all, like, the southern states and, like, the bugs, humidity, and she'll tell you more about it. And then, then she's in Washington, all the rain and all that there. And she's just really homesick. She misses the weather, and, she's not a fan of the politics and all that. But she just misses home. She misses the family and the connection and definitely the weather. She's such a California girl through and through, the surfing and
misses the beach,
the beach, the weather, I think, the sunshine. So I don't blame her for that. But as far as being able to afford and I'd like to be in a more conservative state without all the taxes and stuff.
Right.
So I would like to be on a property where we could all build something. I was thinking to start out as far as like, I would love to be able to get into like a duplex or a triplex temporarily where I can get in on like a FHA loan, live in a portion, like house hack, live in one, rent the others, and then after a year or so, get into a traditional loan, have them pay, like basically have them be paying for it.
Right.
And then scale up.
Yeah.
Like that, in that way, and not to necessarily become rich off of it, but to build enough wealth to be able to leave my kids with something.
Yeah, because ideally you own land, you own properties on that land, and you live there for the rest of your life. Your kids inherit it, and then it's probably going to be paid off by then.
Right.
And then it's just theirs.
So, yeah, I'm not looking to become like a billionaire, but like Bible talks about like being able to leave an inheritance.
Right.
So I don't want to, my dad passed away. He rented a room from somebody, and we literally had to go and clean out like 8 bags of dirty clothes and a bunch of junk from his room.
Oh, wow.
There was nothing. We had to borrow money and get, family had to pitch in just to have him cremated. And I don't want to do that to my kids. I want to, leave them with something.
Right.
Leave something for them.
Yeah.
And that's, I could see that as being a way to do that. So that's just a goal. But so as far as the tax laws go, I don't know what I would change. Maybe put a little bit, I don't know, I'd say to tax them more to where there's something to pay, but the trickle down effect doesn't work. I think that was initially like if they got tax breaks, then it would trickle down. Was that Reagan? I think had come up with that.
Yeah.
And it was supposed to trickle down, and everybody was supposed to get rich off of that, and it just didn't happen because the rich just kept getting richer, and we've somehow wiped out this middle class. Have you noticed that? The middle class is kind of gone, diminished. So we've got this divide between the rich and the poor. I think anyway.
Right.
The housing market's a big problem. This housing shortage.
Oh, it's horrible. Oh, there's such a funny thing my friend sent me yesterday. I don't know if you've seen it. It's like was it House Hunters or whatever is the TV show?
Yeah.
This was like Tent Hunters. Have you seen it?
I saw one. Was it where like they were looking in California?
Yes. And then she's like, oh, and this tent's really nice. It's by a stream, and it's like a sewage system going through there. And there's a Starbucks up on the hill that you can use the bathroom at. Oh my God. But you need to know the code. But here's the code. Yeah. And then the wife's like, just like totally like, what? I don't want to live like this. And the husband's like, oh, this is great, honey. Look, we got access to a Starbucks bathroom.
The thing is I'm like, I'm not for rent caps because I'm been on the homeowner side. I don't think that's fair to the homeowners.
No, it's not.
To put a cap on rent.
Right.
Than being now where I'm like poor and my entire paycheck goes to paying my rent right now.
Yeah.
Like the whole thing is just gone. Because rent's so expensive.
It's crazy. Yeah.
And thank the Lord that I am with somebody that didn't require triple the amount of I would be destitute. If they had required, the people require triple your income for rent right now, that's usually the requirement.
Right.
I'd be living in my car. I'd probably be at the shelter. It's crazy. These are people that are requiring it, at the rental places. I've seen that. They don't even make that, and they're requiring it.
Right.
So I don't know how people are doing it.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I just got really lucky where I'm at.
Right.
But if I have to move there, I don't know what I'm going to do.
You probably have to move out of state.
That's the thing. I hear the argument, well, if you don't have to live on the Central Coast, you can just go move to Bakersfield or whatever.
Yeah. Well, you don't have to live in paradise. Okay. You can go to a hole.
You're right. That's great. I'm, in my 40s, and I've lived here since I was 9, but because of something that happened to me that was beyond my control,
right.
I guess I do have to leave my entire support system and my job and go move away.
Right.
Because I'm being forced out of the area. Because people especially on the internet, they just so flippantly say, well, you don't have to live in this area of the Central Coast. There's other options in California. You can just go move.
Right.
Okay, well, I didn't choose to be a single mom with a baby.
Yeah.
And, I've lived here since I was a child. Mm-hmm. My whole support system's here. My job is here.
Right.
It's not like I guess I could just pick up my entire life and do what I got to do. If I have to, I will. Yeah,
but it's hard to leave everything and everybody and the weather
I mean, my support system here is here, my daycare, the very little family I have left is pretty much in this area.
Right.
So just to pick up and leave is not the easiest thing to just... Okay, let me just go move to the pit of hell.
Right, which is Bakersfield.
Yeah, which is Bakersfield. Sorry, not sorry to any of my Bakersfield natives listening to this right now.
Oh, I'm sure they won't. They probably can't even get this in Bakersfield. I don't think they have the technology yet. Oh man. Gosh. All right, well, you want to bounce to the next section? All right, well, let's jump into spiritual stuff. It's interesting because I'm already learning stuff I didn't know just through what we've talked about. Because I knew you in high school, but it's not like we hung out or we were graduation walking buddies. But that's
always the anecdote that I tell everybody.
Right.
I don't know how it comes up.
Yeah.
But when I know this is not to do with spiritual stuff.
No, go for it.
But I'll tell people I don't even know how I was describing who I was talking to. Maybe it was even Sabin.
Oh, okay.
When I was talking about how I knew you or something, and I talk about how I worked with your mom, and I go, and then Ryan and I actually, besides going to high school together, we walked together at graduation.
Right.
I had a boyfriend that was really jealous, and he had a girlfriend, and we had to walk boy-girl, and then we had to find somebody to walk with.
It was decided that day, I think,
so it was super sudden. We had to find someone to walk with, and that was a safe choice because there wasn't going to be a weird...
Right.
Yeah.
But it was interesting because we hardly knew each other at all. I mean, I had known that you worked with my mom. I mean, we knew each other.
We knew each other.
It wasn't we just met that day, but it wasn't like we really hung in the same circles even necessarily, but... You
were part of the plaid shirt group.
I was. Yeah. Yes. I definitely was part of that.
Yeah.
I'm still part of that group.
Yeah.
But so it wasn't until really later after I became a Christian where we ended up at the same church, and then
that we hung out with.
Exactly, and I used to do the bonfire days and all that stuff, go to concerts like we've already discussed a little bit here and there. But by learning through this, when we were talking about music, you're talking about like growing up in the church, which is different than my experience because I didn't become a Christian until I was 24. Yeah. So when I ended up at Calvary, when I started hanging out with you guys again, I was brand new Christian. I mean, part of my testimony that I hated Christians. I didn't want anything to do with it. So that was the first part for me. So why don't you walk me through for yourself, like your parents were Christians growing up, or were you a churchgoer from an early age?
I don't have a lot of memories of my dad having anything to do with like being a professing Christian at all. My mom could probably speak more to that. I think there might have been a time where he might have said something about it. And before he died, I know that he was, which praise God for that. And well, I guess I'll find out someday.
Right.
But I remember being like a little tiny thing, I'm gonna ask Jesus into my heart type of thing as like a little kid. I don't think that was like a genuine.
But that was before your parents had split up.
Yeah.
So you were church going before that.
I don't have any memories of going as a child. My mom might have brought me when I was little. And then when my parents got divorced at 9 and we moved to Santa Maria, I have a few memories of going to like the Foursquare church.
Okay.
And it freaked me out. It freaked me out.
Too charismatic?
My mom was very charismatic. She got saved during like the big movement in Southern California. Very like charismatic Pentecostal. And the Foursquare here, which I have a lot of friends that were from that church.
Right.
And
well, there was two back then, right? There was Orchid Foursquare and the Santa Maria Foursquare.
It was the Santa Maria one.
They were very different, even in their theology. Like some people said that one was more charismatic than the other.
Which was the more?
I don't remember.
I would imagine it was the Santa Maria.
I think that's correct. Yeah, I think that's correct.
There was a lot of like yelling in tongues and things like that. From what I can remember, I only have a few memories.
But today they're not as far that way.
I don't know because I haven't.
No, I'm telling you they're not. Yeah, because I know people that still go there.
I never went back. So that I was a little kid. I remember just being sent to the Sunday school room, and it was so embarrassing because I didn't know anything about the Bible, and they were playing this Jeopardy game or some sort of game where they were going like round robin, and when it was my turn, I didn't know the trivia.
Right.
And I was just like, I got no points for the team. And I remember being so embarrassed by that.
What a loser.
I know. That memory I carried with me way into my adult years. So when I was at Calvary, and I always remembered that. So when I taught Sunday school, I always tried to not do things like that. And or when Terry would do that, like the trivia game.
Oh yeah, like on Purim, you'd always do that. Yeah,
hand out candy bars. I'd be whispering answers to the kids that I knew were just visiting.
Nice.
Because I hated that. I was so embarrassed.
You didn't want them to go through it.
It was awful because I didn't know. No. I just didn't know anything about it.
Right.
And so that was not a great experience because it was really weird. It was just weird to me.
Yeah.
And then so I don't have many like churchy memories or biblical memories prior to junior high. And then around junior high, maybe my mom maybe praying here and there, but I don't have my mom worked a lot and being a single mom. And so I don't really remember her being around too much, and maybe she prayed and she sang a lot. That was a whole other thing.
Just around the house? Or did she sing on the worship team at church?
No. I don't remember going to church with her too much. Maybe just that time. She probably talked about it. I just don't really remember. And so, but going to junior high, when the first family we lived with, they went to the First Church of the Nazarene. Okay. And so they basically forced me to go to youth group.
Is that the one across from Olive Garden?
I don't know if it's still a Nazarene church, but initially that was the one. But it was cool because they were going to an amusement park. They had the hooks. And so they went to, my first time going there, we went to Family Feud. We went to a recording of Family
of the actual show.
The actual show.
Oh wow!
And it was Ray Combs was the host.
Yeah, so this was before Steve Harvey.
Oh yeah, this was Ray Combs, which I think later I don't know if he committed suicide or died or something. He's no longer with us. No longer with us. Rip.
Yeah.
Rest in peace, Ray Combs. So he, and it was cool because it was Young and the Restless versus Days of Our Lives.
Oh, nice.
It was like a celebrity show.
Yeah.
It was like the coolest thing because I liked soaps at the time.
Okay. Were you a fan of those two soaps?
Like one of them. I couldn't like Days of Our Lives or something. So
Bethany used to watch that one growing up too.
Yeah. So it was kind of cool. So that kind of hooked me. And we went to like Disneyland and played games. And actually some of my youth pastor there, Alan Holmes, I still have him and his wife on Facebook even now. And a few of the people that I went to youth group with still have on Facebook.
Right.
And that's kind of where I got plugged into church.
Okay. And this is like junior high age, you said, right?
Junior high.
Okay.
And then I ended up, my brother and I both got baptized at that church.
Okay.
So that's where I really, I think, got saved.
And how much older than you was he?
8 years.
He's 8 years.
He was 8 years older than me.
And so is your sister older than him, or is she in the middle?
She's in the middle. So he was 8 years, she was 6 years, and I was the baby.
Yeah. You were the surprise.
Yeah. So he was born in 70, my sister was 72, and I was 78.
Okay.
So yeah, we were all the Gen X kids.
Right.
We were all the latchkeys.
Yeah.
So yeah, my brother and I, and my sister at this time was already like out of the house and living at my aunt and uncle's, or she was just gone. Like she was just gone. She got married early and moved out. So my brother and I went there. We both got baptized in that church. I didn't know anything about denominations at that time until, and even like at the time, I didn't really realize there was a difference. I didn't know anything really besides like I just knew there was Christians and like other religions.
Right.
And then there was
Christians and those other religions.
I just knew that there was like Christians and then like I don't know.
Yeah.
I had a friend who was a Jehovah's Witness.
Okay.
That couldn't celebrate holidays. So I don't know that I really knew like the difference besides that she couldn't celebrate holidays and they had a reason for it.
And you're like, I don't want to join that one.
Pretty
that
much.
one sounds like it sucks.
Pretty much. Like she couldn't celebrate her birthday, but her parents always let her have a New Year's Eve party.
Okay.
So we did.
That's fun.
Which they watched like Silence of the Lambs.
Oh, nice. There you go. Might as well ring in the new year right.
That was like my first exposure. That's actually not true. I was about to say that was my first exposure to nudity, but that's not true because I had a neighbor that when we were playing in their backyard, they had a whole bunch of like Playboy magazines.
Oh boy!
I was tiny, so I think I blocked that memory out until just now.
That's good for a kid.
Let me just get that out of my mind.
Look at that. We're doing therapy here today.
Yeah.
You're bringing up past stuff.
I'm unlocking some.
It's coming to the surface.
I'm unlocking some things that need to be locked back into the box. So anyways, so yeah, I didn't know anything about denominations until they had this wedding, and then nobody was dancing, and I did not understand that. I was like, why? Wait. Like, why isn't there dancing here? And they're like, oh, well, like, Nazarenes there's no dancing.
Right.
And I didn't understand that. I thought it was so weird.
Yeah.
And then at that time is when I met my boyfriend in high school. And he was just there playing basketball.
Okay.
Like, that was just the thing.
He wasn't going to the church. He was just using their courts.
I think he went to youth group.
Oh, okay.
But it was, just to play basketball. Because at the time, like, youth group, it was like, the hook was to get the kids in there, and you played the games. Like, I don't know that I remember like a ton of sermons.
Right.
I just remember going and playing a lot of fun games and doing a lot of sleepover things and like dark tag. Like shut off all the lights and it was a fun building to play tag in because there was 2 levels.
Oh yeah, and I've been in that building. Yeah,
there was because they do like
because they did the school and Trivium was there for a while. Yeah, but you had the whole inner balcony that goes around the sides.
Such a fun church to do hide and go seek and stuff in.
I bet.
Loved it. We had so much fun there. We did a ton of like Disneyland trips and lots of great times there. And so all my exposure though to like Christian families and stuff, that was all there. So I do appreciate my time there. Jamie Saylor's family was instrumental in my walk with God during that time because they, like I mentioned my mom being a single mom, and we lived with the other family it was another single mom and her 3 kids who one's passed away now, but I don't know if you ever knew Jason Hilton. He goes to Element. and then Melissa, and then
he was married to Ashley, right?
Yes, and so that's the son.
Okay.
So he was like a little brother to me.
Okay.
So we used to babysit him. So he lived in one room with his brother, and then Melissa and I shared a room with my sister. And so we they were busy all the time, and so it was just us. But so when I got to junior high age, I spent a lot of time at the Sailors, and we sat around. So we ate at home. We would just be in front of the TV or whatever. And then,
is that where you met her? Was that church, or were you guys friends at school already?
At the church.
At the church.
Yeah,
okay.
That's where we met initially.
Okay.
And then so we all of the dinners together, always around the table, and we prayed together.
Right.
So I remember thinking then, when I grow up and have my own family, we're always going to sit around the table at dinner, and we did.
Because that's not something your family did generally.
No, and I think
was
it's
a new thing
because of my mom being in the position where she was working a lot.
Right. Being a single mom, pretty much.
Yeah. And I mean, I think once in a while we did, but it just didn't work out.
Yeah.
Maybe more we did when we moved and we were in our own place.
Right.
But not that much that I can remember. I don't mean this to be a dig at my mom. She just really wasn't there very much.
Right.
And sorry, Mom. It's just, that's just how it is.
Right.
I don't have a lot of time.
You do what you got to do.
Yeah, and so
you went to this church up through high school then, or
pretty much through high school, and then when my boyfriend and I started dating, we were serious for a long time. We were probably over a year in before other things happened, and then at that point I remember my youth pastor always warning me, don't do it, don't don't get too serious, and
you didn't listen, did you?
I didn't listen. And we were not equally yoked. It was that was his big thing. It wasn't just about us being teenagers dating. It was that we were not equally yoked, because he was not. We were just different religions.
Right.
And so, and I think kids now, I mean, they're going to do what they're going to do. It's you're not going to tell a kid you should date to marry. You shouldn't date to date. You should date to marry. And we, at the time, we really believed that we were going to marry each other. Right. In my mind, I was convinced that this was the person I was going to marry.
Well, that's usually in the girl's mind.
Yeah.
Right? And even sometimes the guy may say that.
I think.
But I don't know if they always really believe that. It's almost I don't know.
Maybe if you asked him, you might have believed that. Maybe not. Right. Maybe I'm naive to think that. I'm naive to think that. I feel like we were pretty serious about each other. Maybe not.
Yeah.
And then, so I think during that time, because of our relationship, I walked away from God during that time.
Okay.
Because the guilt of, I'm not walking with God right now, and I can't go.
Yeah. So you just don't go to church, and then God can't see you anymore.
That's it.
And he doesn't know you're doing the wrong things, and you just, then you come back when you're ready, and he'll forget all that stuff.
So that's initially what took me out of the church.
Okay.
Is that, and it was my own. I'm not blaming anybody outside myself.
It's your own decisions. Yeah.
It was my own decision. I kind of walked away from God at that point, and I don't know that I ever fully walked away, because God is always, you can't really walk away. I mean, you can.
But looking in hindsight now, do you see it as a situation where you think you were genuinely saved as a kid at that church, and then you just kind of did your own thing for a while, and then you came back?
So that's such a great question, because I've wrestled with this. Okay, there's those people from the camp that once saved, always saved.
Right.
And then I'm kind of leaning away from that.
Okay.
So most of my life I've been programmed to think once saved, always saved. And I don't know that I necessarily believe that, because a lot of the scripture doesn't really back that up. There's a lot of scripture that we're being encouraged to run the race and continue, and not to finish. And I feel like there's a lot of scripture where you have to continue on, and there are going to be people that fall away, and so I think.
So you think at this point you can lose your salvation? Is that what you're saying? Or you haven't quite crossed that fence yet, but you're somewhere in the middle.
It's such a hard. I've kind of gone back and forth on it. I'm still kind of. I don't know.
Yeah.
I still kind of go back and forth on it. So I'm somewhere in the middle on it.
Right.
I don't know where I've really settled. I'm still looking at the scriptures and trying to decide, and because here's why. Because I believe I was saved during that time, because even when I walked away from God and I wasn't walking with God, I still was being convicted in my sin.
Right.
But
it could be that you got saved and you didn't lose your salvation, but the fact that you were being convicted during your
my time away,
whatever you want to call it,
and that wasn't the first time as a prodigal either.
Right.
Like, there's been times where I've walked away, and now had I died during that time,
right? Am
I still saved?
Right.
I hope so.
But we don't have to think about that because you didn't die during that time.
I didn't die during that time,
right.
Thankfully.
Right.
So those are the kind of things I kind of think about, because I do believe I was saved during that time. I feel like I did have a genuine conversion. I feel like I was old enough. I knew what I was saying when I, said the sinner's prayer. And it's not even that it was like a prayer. It was like I genuinely believed in God, wanted to surrender my life to Him, wanted to have a life where I walked with God.
Not just believed in God, but you mean like salvation, Jesus, right? Because everybody believes in God, whatever that means.
I should have been clear on that. Jesus is God, the Son of God, died for our sins, rose again. Belief in Christ, and like made atonement, made atonement, saved by grace, fully.
Right.
So I believe I was saved during that time.
Yeah, and I would say so. I mean, I do hold to the once saved, always saved. But I like listening to your situation. The people that I would say, because the once saved, always saved philosophy is, they would say if somebody came to you and said, "Oh, I used to be a Christian and now I'm not anymore. Now I'm an atheist." Right? The lose your salvation crowd would say, "Oh, well, you were genuinely saved and then you lost your salvation." But the once saved, always saved would say, "Well, then you were never saved to begin with." Right? But that's that story. That's not your story. Your story is, I decided to walk along with my flesh for a while, but I was convicted that whole time.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying? To me, that's the kicker. And that, to me, is the description of a person who's saved, who's trying to go their own way. It's the people that have no conviction, right? It's the Jesus is my homeboy and he's fine with all the sin I'm committing. Those people, I'm like, I don't think you're saved then. You know what I mean? So
there's been some time during that time, though, that I don't know that I was feeling a lot of conviction. Okay. I kind of blocked it out there.
Okay.
So I don't know, and I think God in His graciousness just, I don't know, there was like this holding period almost where maybe just I got kind of set aside for a minute. I don't know. So,
or he knew you were going to come back.
So that happened. I walked away during that time, and the boyfriend and I broke up, and that was like 3.5 year relationship. And then during that time, there was like a little period between him and meeting my then husband, where I was great friends with this girl that I worked with at the grocery store, and actually worked with her. Her name was April. She and I worked together there at the store, but we weren't actually friends until we realized we had a class together at Hancock.
Okay.
And I don't know who I actually started smoking with.
So this is when that happened?
Yeah.
This is after you...
and the funny thing is I didn't smoke at all with the boyfriend in high school. He did. And I was angry about it. Oh my gosh. I gave him like heck about it. I was so mad. And
isn't that funny? So you're with a guy who does that and you're like, don't ever do that. I hate when you do that. And then as soon as you guys break up, you're like, okay.
Yeah.
I'll do that too.
I was like so mad about it. Because like, even though we were doing the other thing, I think because the Christian part of me was like, oh, you shouldn't do that.
Right.
And I tried it too in high school. And so I remember who I smoked. I don't know if I want to say the person's name.
Yeah, you don't have to say anybody's name.
I won't say their name, but the person I did with high school, they took me. I won't go. You know what? Maybe I'll skip that story because in case any of the kids do listen to this.
I don't know. I don't want them to know about my past.
Save that for another day.
All right, so let's just fast forward then. You're out of the one church. Did you ever go back to that church?
Yes, so I did. There was this time where I'd walked away because. So after that time, that's when I kind of got into like smoking and all that, and kind of on that whole, it was total stoner during that time. And going to school, man, I did really good in school. like I was a very functional stoner. I wasn't like this burnout stoner. And
is this college now at this point?
Yeah.
Okay, so you've already graduated high school.
I went straight from high school to Hancock, and I got almost all A's and B's there. Because again, I love school.
Right.
And so I wasn't like your typical stoner that just wanted to be burnout. Like, and I would smoke from morning to night.
Wow.
And I got great grades. I was like...
You should be a spokesperson for weed. I mean, you're like, kids, this is what you do to get good grades.
I was at the store working, like counting out people's money, like at the grocery store.
Right.
I don't know how I went to work like that. I think the only explanation is maybe because it's a lot stronger these days than it was back then.
Yeah, it's different than then,
and so, like, maybe that was it. And it was like, at the time, I just had like the old like Mexican stuff that they had, like breaking up seeds and all that. And then I met the girl I was friends with, and she had like this good stuff, and so kind of got into that, and total not following God at all. And then met John, and that was all about our life. Like,
what was weed?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like the night I met him, literally my friend April and I went to this hotel room because her boyfriend was dating John's buddy at the time. Okay. Jerry, that you probably knew him from school.
Oh yeah. Yep.
And so they're, let's just go hang out. We're just like gonna go smoke and hang out, and it was kind of like a love at first sight type of thing.
Okay.
And
between you and John?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah. We just fell for each other super hard, and couldn't stop like staring at each other.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And it was, the funny thing is I'm the one that had the weed, and he didn't have anything, and it was kind of a joke that was between us because he's the one who ended up he was kind of selling it, but he didn't have any, and whatever. And so long after they hung out, he and I ended up hanging out all night, and it was just it was fun, and it was kind of like that should have been a red flag from the beginning. That's how it started off. The funny thing is I told him I don't date smokers because I don't like cigarettes.
Okay.
And he smoked cigarettes. So here we are smoking weed, and I'm telling him I don't date smokers. Yeah. And he's like, "Oh, that's okay, I'm quitting." Right. So that was the first line.
Well, maybe he just figured, hey, if it's for you, love at first sight, hey, I'll quit whatever you want me to quit,
Only he never did.
Oh, yeah.
That's okay, though.
He probably tried, though.
He did. Yeah. He did.
That's a hard one to kick. They say that's harder than heroin, they say.
I genuinely, from the bottom of my heart, I really hope he does quit someday. Yeah. I really mean that. It's such a terrible, addicting thing. But, I mean, it was stupid of me. Here I am smoking weed, wanting him to quit something that is also smoking. It's so dumb. Right. So, yeah, that's so off topic. But it is and it's not, because that was our lifestyle in the beginning. And we got, together really quickly. We had Brianna. We got pregnant with Brianna. We had moved in together pretty quick. We met on his birthday.
Oh, nice.
So he always told people I was his birthday present.
Nice.
Nice, not so much now that we're not together.
Right.
I guess that was a bad birthday present.
No, because I'm sure he'll say you gave him the kids and all that. I'm sure he sees it as a blessing.
Well, so funny thing about that, we met on December 18th, and his birthday is December 19th. And so we always kind of said that December 18th was our date anniversary. And so after, now that we're not together, I was like, oh man, that's kind of crappy. It's this date I have to remember. So Gianna was born on December 18th.
Oh, no way.
Which is great though, because now it replaced what would have been kind of a sad date with a great date. Right. So now her birthday
is... What are the odds? That's nuts to me.
It's fantastic.
I love that kind of stuff.
To me, it's great because also my Uncle Johnny, his birthday was December 18th. Okay. And there's all kinds of cool things to do with now her birthday is.
It's almost like there's a God that knows what he's doing.
Awesome.
You almost believe that.
And so, and then side story to that. So Gianna is a counterpart to Giovanni, which is John.
Oh,
so it's a nod to.
It's the female Italian version of John.
Basically.
Okay.
Which can be two things. It could be being named after her dad, but also she was born on my Uncle John's birthday. Okay. So it's kind of both.
Right. That's cool.
Yeah. So anyway, that's a side note.
So you and John get together.
Yeah, we got together.
Move in together.
We moved in together, got pregnant, and then got married we were still smoking at this time. So I did quit smoking like when I was pregnant with her, and then when I was nursing, I couldn't. I was too convicted. I couldn't like smoke. So this is when I felt God like more that presence because I couldn't smoke and nurse because I couldn't like look down at this baby that I'm nursing and like have that like knowing that a substance was going to her.
Right.
And so I quit for at least the 6 weeks. And then when I went back to work, it was really hard to keep up with like pumping and all of that. And then our buddy that was there, the one I mentioned earlier, he was at our house and he like blew this big old bong rip in my face. I'm like, that's it. She's going on a bottle. And I started smoking again because I just couldn't withhold the temptation.
Wow. So it's all his fault.
No. I can't blame him, but man, I had no willpower. It was terrible.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, it was so bad. But like, I didn't see anything super wrong with it at the time.
Right.
Like, I really didn't because I was so functional.
Yeah.
Like,
okay, so real quick, before we continue on with that, I want to hear the rest of the story, of course, but I'm really interested now because, like, I mean, I don't smoke weed just because I don't, but it used to be an easy answer from Christianity's standpoint because, like, well, or should we smoke? I mean, is God against weed? I mean, well, he's not against drinking alcohol as long as you're not getting drunk. Obviously, that's scriptural. But what about weed? And it used to be, well, it's illegal. So there you go. The Bible says to follow the laws of the land. So if it's illegal, biblically you shouldn't do it. But now it's legal. So I don't really know what the specific Christian stance on that would even be, right? So I mean, how do you feel about it now? Like, what do you think about that?
Honestly, I still have really mixed feelings towards it.
Okay.
I do. Okay, so the Bible does say to be sober-minded.
True.
I really genuinely have mixed feelings about it. I don't think a lifestyle of it is the best idea.
Right.
Because I was there.
Because then you'd be a burnout like you were talking about earlier.
Yeah, which I wasn't though. That's the thing. It's like, because I think it would be different for each person. I was very functional and good at doing life with it.
Right.
I was. Some people get really depressed. And if you don't have it, have really bad reactions.
Right.
And super addictive. And I've seen a lot of bad come from it. Like, example, my brother, when he was sick, we got him pot brownies and stuff.
Right.
It helped for a little while. Like, he had a bad metallic taste in his mouth, like, because he couldn't eat when he had cancer. He couldn't eat, no appetite. So I think that helped a little bit as far as, like, giving him hunger, like, giving him to where he can eat a little bit.
Right.
To ask my sister-in-law, I don't think it was very long that it helped. I think it was just like,
Yeah.
It was something. For some cancer patients and things, it does help. In a medicinal sense.
Right.
I think it's a heck of a lot better than a lot of the pharmaceutical drugs. Like, who's to say, like, how come a legal pharmaceutical drug would be better than, like, a quote-unquote natural? Doing air quotes, people, to describe all my Italian arm signals going on over here. But yeah, I think that's why I have such a hard time with it, because in the medicinal sense of it, don't think it's the worst thing in the world.
Right.
I think there's a time and a place for it. Just like alcohol. Yeah. Like, if you're going to abuse it and have a lifestyle of alcohol, I think it can really interfere with your family and your life and your job.
That could be anything. It could be things like food. It could be anything. I think anything we're addicted to is bad, right? It takes our mind off the Lord. It takes us away from that. So, I mean, obviously there's certain things I'd rather not be, like the worst things to be addicted to, like being addicted to cheeseburgers is not as bad as heroin, I would imagine, but.
Yeah, so I mean, like, I don't think it's the worst thing, and people use it for sleep, or they'll use it to relax, and I don't think it's terrible. Okay. I'm not going to say Christian's not a Christian if they use it.
No, I wouldn't either. But anyway, so let's guide this a little side note.
Yeah.
But that's something I'm thinking about lately, just because of the legality of it and stuff.
Yeah.
But,
anyway. I don't want to disclose too much just because of my profession either.
Right.
Like, there's right. I just can't go into too much detail.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, no problem. So back to so you and John. Okay, we got Brianna now.
Yeah, so we have Brianna. I still didn't have too big of a problem with it, and then there was a time where I pushed her out of the room because I wanted to smoke. She was like a toddler. It was awful.
Yeah.
And that was where I was like, okay, something's wrong here.
Right. It's one of those memories.
So here was the big game changer. So our buddy we used to buy weed from got saved one day. And it was our connection. We had a few connections, but our main guy we used to get like bags for. We would buy enough to sell a little bit so we'd have free smoke, basically. We weren't like, you know, in that sense of like, you know, we weren't like slinging weed to like make money.
Right.
Well, he got saved. And that was like, whoa, it was an eye-opener for us because it really got us thinking. And we were like, wow, like, we used to go to church. Like, I used to go to church. He used to go to church. And at one point, I think God had already been kind of working on us. And then this big thing happened where the guy we were buying drugs from essentially got saved.
Right.
So that got John and I talking. And we decided we wanted to try to go to church again. So we went back to my church, my old church. And it was not, I did not feel right there. Like the old organ playing. And it was like stuffy and too grown up-ish, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And it just didn't feel right. It didn't feel good, and not like I went to feel something.
Right.
But it was just weird. It was just weird and didn't feel like this. I don't know how to describe it.
Yeah.
And then he said, "Oh well." When I was in Southern California, I got kicked out of a Calvary Chapel.
I got kicked out of one.
He used to go he got kicked out of a bunch of schools, and one of them was a Calvary Chapel high school. And so he said, let's go check out this Calvary Chapel. And so that's when we checked out our church.
Okay.
And I think Tommy and Jackie were the first couple that I recognized. From that I knew, and then you guys. Right. I don't know if it was that same visit.
Probably close to, yeah.
Yeah, it was like
because they were one of the first ones we connected with too.
Yeah, but seeing them there, I was like, okay, like we know somebody here.
Right.
Oh man, it felt so good to see people we knew, and like immediately we felt welcomed.
Right.
Like almost immediately, and it felt so great. And so then the problem was we were still total stoners. But now I was feeling convicted. So then it got to this point where I was like smoking every day but Sunday.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that's the only day the Lord can see you.
Yeah. I couldn't smoke on a church day.
Yeah.
And then I started listening to Christian music because I was in the car, and I'll never forget, it was a song. Baby, if you give it to me, I give it to you.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I want? I don't know. It's like, God, you don't want to hear my voice on there singing that. It's terrible. For somebody who was in choir, and I just got a horrible singing voice.
Yeah.
But I had bronchitis really bad when I was like 20. And I've never been able to sing the same since then.
And all your American Idol dreams went down the toilet. Yeah.
Poor Gianna, and I sing to her all the time, poor baby. Anyways, and she was like copying me. And I was like, oh my gosh, turning the station. So Brianna got me listening to Christian music after that.
Nice.
So I turned the channel. Well, then all of these songs and things came on were all about self-control. And I was doing that, mystery Bible where you flip open to anything.
Yeah. Bible roulette.
Yes, Bible roulette.
Yeah.
And then all of these scriptures were all like on self-control. And okay, Lord, you're like trying to tell me something. So it was around that time. I think Brianna was like preschool age that we really like rededicated our lives. Okay. And John took a little bit longer, I think, before I quit pretty early on. And that's when I got rid of like all that Simpsons stuff. Remember? You and I were both like really into the Simpsons.
Yeah.
I had all of those like toys, like all the action figures.
Right.
And I had a ton of those, like all the scenes. Now I'm looking back going, I wonder if those would have been worth anything.
So they probably would if they're still in the box.
Yeah, they were all in the box. They sold them all at a yard sale for like nothing.
Some guy's a millionaire now.
Yeah, like Moe's Bar and all of that stuff. Yeah, all the South Park dolls.
Oh, man.
I got convicted of everything. Like I cleaned house.
Right.
We got rid of so much stuff.
Right.
We had John had a ton of dragons. Like he collected dragon things and a lot of
that's a pretty stoner thing to do. So you got to get the dragons and the incense burners and all that stuff.
All that. Although incense was in the temple, so maybe we could have kept the incense.
That's true. Yeah. That's very biblical.
We could have kept the incense, maybe.
Yeah.
Oh, man. We cleaned house. I got rid of so much stuff.
Okay.
And really kind of turned things around at that point.
Okay.
And then, I don't know, kind of went back and forth over the years with some things. Did our best to really follow God, and kind of changed our stance on things over the years.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you, if you wanted to kind of fast forward and if you want to talk about kind of, because we do have some differing theological views at this point in our lives.
My views have changed quite a bit over the years. So, going back to the Pentecostal thing. So even though Calvary, I will say, I love that I spent so many years in the Calvary Chapel, and I will say I still watch online every week.
Okay.
Today even.
Do you go anywhere physically right now, or do you?
I do. I haven't now. Like the last. Well, I had my car was broke down for a long time.
Right.
So that was really because physically I couldn't go anywhere.
Right.
I do a home study that I go to.
Like with other people, like a small group kind of thing?
A small group.
Okay.
I do go online to Calvary every Sunday, and would like to start going back physically.
Yeah.
Part of the problem with that right now really is just because it falls during Gianna's nap time.
Oh.
So I'm just trying to figure out how to fix that.
Yeah, it's hard at that age.
So that's really logistically, there's an issue with that.
But good thing there's internet and you can still watch online.
Yeah, I'm still going because I am missing and we'll get to that. So my views have changed so much. So even though the Pentecostal part freaked me out from my mom initially taking me to that Foursquare, I still always felt oh man, we're missing. I still believed in all that because that was kind of how I was brought up, even though there wasn't a lot of that in Calvary. But what I loved about Calvary, and I didn't really realize that Calvary did that other churches didn't do, is how well they taught the word. Right. Going line by line.
Verse by verse, yep.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. That is such a...
Expository, I think they call that, right?
Oh, yes, expository. Mm-hmm. It's so rare to be able to even find that. Right. Even amongst other Calvaries.
Right.
We are very lucky where we're at here.
Right. Well, there's too many controversial texts. And a lot of churches don't do it that way because they think, well, then I can just skip those. Right. I don't have to talk about that stuff.
Right. So I will say that I really appreciate that. And so there was this time where my brother and sister-in-law were going to an Assembly of God in Arroyo Grande. So every once in a while I would go there to get a hit of the Holy Spirit per se. And it was movements of the Holy Spirit and stuff like that. And looking back, and we did oh man, we went to this prophecy class for weeks and weeks there. Looking back, it was so unbiblical. They were literally teaching people how to speak in tongues and teaching people how to prophesy and teaching, going through all this stuff. And I was all about it back then. Right. And looking back now, knowing what I know now, I'm that was so unbiblical and so off. And how did I miss it? Right. And so so I'll fast forward several years back. Again, my sister-in-law, they stopped celebrating all these holidays. And we're what is going on here? And we're what are you guys doing? And they were doing Torah and all this. And we're oh man, they're back under the law. And didn't know what was really going on. And then we watched this video that they showed us and we're and then we really started looking at it. And prior to that, there was a lot of things in scripture that John and I had talked about that we saw as contradictions, or we thought were contradictions. Mm-hmm. And so we really kind of questioned, and then the church didn't really ever have answers for us. And we started wondering well, why do we do the things that we do? And
which is good to think about, for sure.
So I think there's a lot of things that we do as a church or as Christians that we don't necessarily, we just don't question it. We just kind of go along with it because that's just how we were raised and that's how the church did things. So we watched this video, which now a lot of the stuff's been there's no evidence for whatever XYZ. Mm-hmm. And a lot of it's related to Christmas and things like that. But there's a big part of it that I can't unsee now that is stuck with me. And a big part of it is I think a big thing missing from the church is the law. And it's not like not trying to go back under the law, but like the Old Testament and the New Testament, they all go together, and there's been this big separation. And I think we're missing the feast days. And at some point, the church has taken like the Sabbath, which is a big deal to God, and just like, oh, we're just going to go ahead and make that on a Sunday now. And there's not any, like, there's nothing in Scripture that supports it being Sunday.
Well, I mean, let me kind of cut in though, but so I think that I don't know many Christians that would call Sunday the Sabbath. They call Sunday the Lord's Day.
A lot.
They don't have church on Saturday, which is the actual Sabbath. Yeah. Right? But
they also don't keep the Sabbath.
Well, they don't. Okay, so what would you say is keeping the Sabbath? Like, how would you describe that?
Well, I mean, it's a day that's set aside for God. So basically,
or for rest is what the Bible says, right?
For rest, and so not like that's usually the chore day. And there's anything but rest usually happening on the Sabbath.
Well, I agree with you. Totally. Yeah.
And so, and it takes effort in the beginning to turn it around to make it a Sabbath day. But there is God gave it to people as a gift. He calls it a gift, and it is a blessing. And once it's treated that way, it really truly is. And it's pretty sad that God literally has to tell people to rest because we're such a busy people that we won't. Because even Sunday, so even the people that will call Sabbath Sunday or Sunday a Sabbath, that's not even a rest day. It might be for the church portion of the day.
But even then it's not. Because you got the people that are on the worship team, you got the people that are doing all this stuff.
The rest of the day is so busy with activities. Right. And so it takes a lot of work to really make yourself rest, focus on God. So to not even to me, but to Scripture. It's not spending money. It's not working, but also not causing other people to work. So
which is big Sabbath observers. That is the way that they.
I try
would do
not.
That.
I mean, and I'm not if I have to do something that day, it's not I don't feel like I'm gonna be smited, smote, whatever,
smoten.
I'm not losing salvation over it. I don't do I don't do anything to earn salvation, or so at the core of it, I'm not getting any I'm saved by grace ultimately. Right. So basically, my goal is to love God and to love others ultimately, because that's what God calls us to. Right. But
so in your own words, though, you would say that the Sabbath keeping that was given in the Old Testament is for Christians today as well. That's your viewpoint.
My view is really the law in general is for Christians today.
All of the law.
All the law that pertains to just the average Joe. There's a lot of it that pertains to temple stuff and stuff that just is not applicable.
But doesn't that seem to lend to the fact that was probably strictly for the Jewish mindset? If there is stuff in there that can only be done by the Jews, but then we take the other stuff that can't, not that can't, but that can be done by us as Gentiles, because we don't need the temple, we don't need the stuff, like keeping the Sabbath.
No, I think those things, I think what can be done should be, and I think that's Christians are doing it anyway, and they're just leaving out God's, the holy days. I think really most Christians are keeping most of the law. They're, for the most part, they're not committing adultery, and they're not stealing, and hopefully not killing, and
so these are the 10 Commandments you're more referring to.
Well, yes and no. You ask most pastors, they're going to ask you to tithe. Right. And that's more of a, you'll see some scriptures in the New Testament, but a lot of them we're going to talk to you out of Malachi. They're going to say
always Malachi. Yeah. Which is all food.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with money.
Yeah. They're going to, so a lot of the Christians will cherry pick certain laws that they're going to keep or not. Right. And it's been, the New Testament says that all Scripture is beneficial. Sure. And there's been I think a part of the downfall of church is that they've put this big separation, this big gap, and God is God of believers, not just like, there's not like a separate God for Jews and a separate God for Gentiles. And I think that's one of the reasons why Jews have not come to Christ is because we're saying, oh, yep, we're throwing out all this stuff. Like the law shows us how to live a holy life. God says, like in the New Testament and the Old Testament, be holy for I am holy. And here's how you do it. Like we're supposed to try to live as Christ lived, and then he came as the perfect example because he lived out the law perfectly. So our goal is to be a disciple and to live to the best of our ability. We're going to fall short. That's where grace comes in. To live as Christ lived, and he did these things, and we should try to do these things because that's what holiness is.
So when it says that Jesus was the fulfillment of the law, that's what you would take that to mean, that he lived the law perfectly.
He lived the law perfectly.
And that he was an example for us to follow. Right.
Okay. And he fulfilled like the punishment of sin and death. That is like, that's what's been nailed to the cross. Like,
so we don't have to sacrifice animals anymore.
We don't have to sacrifice animals anymore. Like that part's done. We're not going to have to continuously... Yeah, we're repenting for our sins daily because Christ died. Like, we're going to continue to seek forgiveness and, you know, keep ourselves pure before God in that sense. I think that would be, that's sufficient. Because, so I don't think we have to do, like, temple sacrifice. We don't have a temple.
Well, because it's impossible. Like you said, that's something impossible to do. But you wouldn't say, and I think you had mentioned this to me before, and this is part of the reason why I wanted to bring it up today, is because... a lot of, well, first of all, would you even consider yourself part of the Messianic Jewish movement?
Okay, so this is the thing, like, I really hesitate. I don't want to be associated really with, like, Hebrew roots.
Well, because your view is already different. That's what I was going to say. A lot of people involved in that movement that talk to me, they would say it like this. They would say, you have to maintain your salvation by keeping the law, by following the feasts, by doing these kinds of things. And you wouldn't say that.
No, the salvation was those were never even given for salvation. Those were always to point to Christ. And Christ fulfilled that. And and now it's for holy living, really. Okay. And I think it all goes together. It all goes together. God tells us, if you love me, you'll keep my commandments. And yes, the greatest commandments is to love God and love your neighbor. And all of those others hinge upon those two. And then so basically it's like, it shows you how to love God and how to love others. So it's like a tab on a computer almost. Like you've got the 10 Commandments where like the first half is like how to love God and the second half is how to love others, or maybe I'm mixing that up. And then those aren't even like, then you open those tabs up and then there's all these like 613 or whatever, and a lot of those don't even pertain to us. So it's really just people like freak out and be like, oh my gosh, there's all these laws to follow. Well,
like shaving your beard a certain way.
Living in America, we have thousands of laws to follow. And people keep them for the most part perfectly without batting an eyelash.
We try to anyway,
But then God says it and it's like, we're all up in arms and you're putting yourself into the law, and it's this crazy like people are so against it. Like you're just this crazy like Christian, and you're so somehow forsaking grace, and there's like
have you lost friends over that, or have you
I've got family members telling me I'm in a cult and all kinds of craziness, and I think it's because they haven't stopped to listen to my actual beliefs on it. And it's hard to hear people in the pulpit say talk about like how you shouldn't follow the law when the scripture's saying like if you even tell people to not follow it, like how bad that is. Like you should not be telling people to not follow the law. That's not good. Because it says until heaven and earth pass away, like not one jot or tittle. So like, why aren't we doing this? Like,
well, but the differing opinion I think would be like some from my perspective, I would say I agree with everything you just said, I think. But to say like that not a jot or a tittle will pass away from the law until the end, basically, of all things. But see, someone in my position would say, I don't think the law's been abolished. I don't think the law doesn't exist anymore. Like Jesus came and all of a sudden now we can just throw the Old Testament in the trash can and it's only New Testament. That's all that matters. I, like you, would say the old and the new go together. They're hand in hand. But I think the purpose of the law is not to follow and keep it, but it's to bring us to Christ. It's the tutor, the schoolmaster that it talks about in Galatians, I believe, where its whole point, and this is probably where you and I would disagree, but I see it as the whole point of the law is to show you that you can't do it. It's like, here's what you have to do to be perfect and holy. Go ahead and do that. I can't. You're right. Here's Christ.
But the Bible says
right?
I could do all things through Christ who strengthens me.
Well, yes, but that's through Christ, right? So if he's the fulfillment of the law.
Yeah.
But another thing I would want to ask, like what is your thought on, I was just thinking of another thing to ask about, because there's a common...
Well, how do we know to do it or not? Like, so we have the Holy Spirit now.
Mm-hmm.
So,
right.
But how does the Holy Spirit lead us in those things if we don't know, if we haven't read the Old Testament to even know what those things are? So now I could read and I'll know, and then the Holy Spirit nudges, reminds.
Right.
There's a lot of things that, like, people just, it's kind of arbitrary if you don't, because people are like, oh, I'm led by the Spirit. Well, to what? You don't know what it is.
Right.
How do you know what the law is
if
it's not written down? How do you know if you're following it correctly? How do you know how God wants to be worshipped?
Right.
He tells us in his word how he wants to be worshipped.
Sure.
I think a lost thing too is like the feast days, I think, are really important. I think Christians have gotten away from that. I think they were meant for I think they were meant for believers.
Hey, I'm all for a good feast.
They're awesome. They're awesome. Let me tell you. I think I think all the feast days point to Christ.
Right.
I think it would be amazing if churches, Christian churches, would observe them.
Well, but they point to, like, don't they point to in the sense, though, of like in Colossians where it talks about their shadow of the things to come, like all the feasts and the days and the.
Well, we're going to be celebrating them. We're going to be keeping them when Christ returns. So we should probably know what we're doing.
Mm-hmm. We're going to be keeping them when he returns.
It talks about it in Revelation.
Okay. Like the 144,000 kind of deal. The remnant.
No.
Okay.
I should have scripture ready. I should have scripture ready for you.
Yeah, I don't have any ready really either. I'm just saying, I think it's Colossians. I think it's Galatians. I don't know.
So, I mean, like the early believers were keeping the feasts.
Sure.
They point to, like, the spring feast point to Christ coming, and the fall feast point to his return.
Yeah. Well, I would tell you this. If you ever have one of these feasts and you invite me, I will go.
Okay.
I have nothing against going.
Yeah.
I mean, especially because your standpoint isn't like, okay, Ryan, you need to eat this food and keep this feast so you can maintain your salvation.
No,
I would probably still go even if you said that.
But I don't believe it's for salvation.
Okay.
I think Christ is the only way to salvation.
Right.
And okay, so do you know the podcast? My gosh, it's escaping me right now.
There's a guy that you've sent me before.
I have to look.
Of that kind of thing. I forgot. I don't remember his name. I remember what he looks like.
I have to look.
He's got a beard.
Oh no.
I don't remember who that guy was, but I know you had sent me some videos.
Oh no, have you Cultish?
Cultish, yeah, okay. Apologia.
Yeah, Apologia Studio. So they did one on, like, Hebrew roots. I was like, oh, here we go.
Right, which that's a movement in itself, right?
Yeah. And so, because a lot of what I believe people go, you're Hebrew roots because you're Torah observant or pursuant, and, like, I don't know, there's so many different, like.
And it's hard for you to get lumped into things that, right?
No, I'm not. I
right.
like to be called that, and so it's funny because I listened to all the cultist. There's a few. They came out with new ones too. So the initial ones, it was so they even had a hard time doing it because it's such a broad, it's such a broad movement of people that believe and don't believe certain things,
right?
That they couldn't pinpoint specifically because some people believe some things, some people believe another,
right?
That it was really hard for them to touch on it.
But it's just like saying all Christians believe the exact same thing.
Look at all the thousands of denominations of it. They can't come together.
Right.
And then they had a more updated one where this guy was really going after it, and he's trying to say, oh, well, they say this, and they say this, and he had an argument for it. And even that, I can go with that guy and say, oh, nope. And I could kind of answer it in the food thing because I don't eat pork or shellfish
ever.
And no.
Okay.
And so I believe it's God laid it out. It's not food. I don't believe it's food.
Okay.
And I don't think that's a Jewish thing. I think that's and like same thing Sabbath. I don't think that's a Jewish thing. I think that was laid out in Genesis.
Okay. So the last thing, because unfortunately we got to cut this now.
Yeah.
But I remember what I was going to ask. It is, dang it.
It's like cut out the other side. Keep those saying.
But I was going to ask earlier, and I forgot as I was trying to tell you. But what is your kind of viewpoint on the opposing side that would say about the Sabbath? I'm going back to the Sabbath, and how the people that will say, well, Jesus, he re-quoted every single of the 10 Commandments except for the Sabbath. That's the only one. And Paul never mentioned it either. Like any of you don't really see it mentioned as far as the instructional part of the New Testament. Have you heard this before? Like this kind of opposing view, I guess, to the idea that Christians are supposed to keep it.
I don't think so, because they just naturally met. They always met on the Sabbath. It was just a thing. Like in the early church, you think that they met on the Sabbath, not synagogue, but like Christians met on Saturday. Well, they met all the time.
True.
They just met all the time.
Right.
It didn't actually get changed to Sunday. It was I think that was like a Constantine.
It was Constantine, yeah. Which I disagree with, because I still think Sabbath is Saturday.
Yeah.
I totally believe that.
Yeah, that got changed.
Right.
Yeah, and that was like an anti-Semitic move.
Sure,
really.
It was, yeah.
And I think that's a tactic of the enemy too, because you're taking away God's appointed times, and I think that's something that why are we doing that? So there's a lot of things in the church like that. That's why I have a hard time. Like I really do love Calvary. There's things that I wish we did differently.
Sure.
I really do wish that they would keep, there's so when we questioned it back when I was still married, the reply was, well, email us. We couldn't have a topic about it. It was, we wanted to have a good conversation about it.
Yeah.
When we first started having questions. And that wasn't, it just wasn't really the reply we wanted to get.
Yeah. Well, they're probably not going to fall in line with that, because they're very pro-Israel, obviously, as you know, but they're not. They don't think that we're supposed to follow.
And we didn't want to be assumed it was we're not. We didn't think we were Hebrew roots either.
Right.
And I don't consider myself. I just think I consider myself a Christian who's seeking the truth.
Sure.
I think it's really important that it all goes together. I think it's really important to know the whole Word of God.
Yes.
Old and new. I think it all goes together.
Yep.
I don't think you could fully understand the New Testament without understanding the Old Testament.
Right. And I also agree with that.
I think they definitely go together.
Yeah.
But again, I think salvation is only through Christ.
See, I agree with you on almost everything you're saying.
I don't like to put a lot of emphasis on, I'll celebrate, 4th of July and things like that. I've kind of backed off from Christmas because I think it does take away from. Anybody who celebrates any of those holidays, I have nothing against them.
Right.
I don't really necessarily think it's like a pagan thing.
It's just a personal thing for you.
It's a personal thing. I think it takes away maybe more from the feast days.
Yeah.
The attention. God wants us to worship in a certain way. Look at the Israelites. They fashioned the calf. They thought they were doing it unto God, and that was not pleasing to God.
Right.
So I think we need to be really careful about how we worship, because because we think we're doing it for God to be for Him doesn't necessarily mean that's what God wants.
And that opens up a whole other conversation about worship. Dang. All right. Well, fortunately, we got to cut it.
Part 2.
Yeah, part 2. Yeah, maybe we'll do a part 2. Well, thanks for coming.
Oh yeah.
That's awesome.
Thanks for having me.
So cool. Thank you so much for checking out this week's episode. If you have any questions or comments, please send me an email at whycan'twetalkaboutThat@proton.me. If you want to continue the conversation, please join the Why Can't We Talk About That podcast Facebook group. Also, if you haven't yet, please leave a review at Apple Podcasts or wherever you are listening to this from. Thanks. Here's a clip from next week.
Sometimes I kind of feel, and this is not true, but sometimes I feel when I encounter more people that are hypocritical or more they're Christian and and then you're Christian, you should be good,
Right.
But we're all sinners, and
right.
And then some of my non-Christian friends, I could be they're more open-minded sometimes, Mm-hmm. And what kind of bothers me too is like, you know, I like our last conversation. Like I'm accepting of, you know, people that are like that are homosexual. You know?
Sure.
Like I actually shot a couple like last week or 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
That were same sex, and like I know it's not biblical and stuff, but like
right.
they're not hurting anyone, and
right.
that's how they feel. So I'll support them. You know.
Right.
But I think so. Like I've had people say like you probably shouldn't put that on your page. I'm like, why not? You know,
right.
They're not hurting anyone. That's how they feel, and it's just not like they're not imposing it on you.
Right.
They're not telling you to be like gay, but like that's how they feel, and it's not. And they're not. Like I said, two things that if they're not imposing it on you, or if they're not hurting anyone, then I'm fine with it.